We're going to be starting shortly. Can I have your attention, please? I'd like to call the meeting to order and welcome to the April 2nd, 2007 Lowell Planning Board meeting. Tonight we have 5 public hearings. At this point in time, I would request that through the board that we waive the order of agenda, if we could, and take up 2 of the repetitive petitions first, then get into the other public hearings. Any board members have any questions in regards to that? Okay. Yeah, okay. Therefore, what we'll do, we'll start off with the first repetitive petition. The first repetitive petition will be 99 Rosemont Street. The Lowell Planning Board will review an application relative to repetitive petition application by Teresa M. Bilodeau for the ability to subdivide the property located at 99 Rosemont Street into 3 parcels and construct 2 new single-family homes in a floodplain overlay district. On March 17, 2006, the Lowell Zoning Board of Appeals took an unfavorable action on the previous proposal at this site to construct a single-family home. In order for the Zoning Board of Appeals to consider the merits of this new application, the Planning Board must consent that the new application contains specific and material changes from the first application. The Planning Board will take this vote at the conclusion of the public hearing. Will we hear the case for the applicant, please?
Mr. Chairman, before we begin, too, I'd like to mention that I'm going to recuse myself on this hearing and vote. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Do we have the applicant here for Rosemont Street?
Excuse me, Diane Perry.
Yep, could you cut the microphone, please, ma'am, so we can hear you and people at home can hear you as well?
I'm Diane Perry, but it looks like our engineer is missing in action right now.
Okay.
I don't know what his delay is. He did know it was at 6:30.
All right, then I'll move to the next matter, okay?
Thank you so
When
much.
he comes in, if you could just give us the wave and I'll get back to you, okay? All right, thank you. Moving along, the next repetitive petition we have is 278 Branch Street. Let me ask if they're present and ready to go before I start. Is everybody here for 278 Branch Street? Okay. Okay, on 278 Branch Street, the Lowell Planning Board will review the application to the Zoning Board of Appeals by Peter T. for variance and special permit to operate a restaurant without the required parking on the property located at the above address. On July 24th, 2006, the Zoning Board of Appeals took an unfavorable action on the previous proposal at that site. In order for the Zoning Board of Appeals to consider the merits of this new application, the Planning Board must consent that the new application contains specific and material changes from the first application. The Planning Board will take this vote at the conclusion of the public hearing. May we hear the case for the applicant, please?
Hi, my name is Leanne. I'm here to represent my father, Peter T. We're here regarding the current restaurant at 278 Branch Street. My father would like to relocate his restaurant from 2 doors down that same street, and everything will be the same, except that the new place he owns, and it has off-street parking, and that it's much bigger. The current location he's at, he's leasing that place, and it has no off-street parking. And also, everything is going to stay the same, so he's just moving just 2 doors down the same street. We would like you to hear us on that.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Does your father want to say anything? I know he has a little bit of a language barrier that was brought to our attention when he was before the Zoning Board of Appeals before.
No, he doesn't.
Okay, thank you. If the board members have any questions, we'll ask you some questions, okay?
Okay.
Anybody else here want to speak in favor of the repetitive Branch Street petition? Excuse me, if you could let the people come to the microphone and speak, and if you just have a seat, we'll call you up again if we have any questions. Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, my name is George Zaharoulis. I'd like to speak in favor of this repetitive petition to be sent back to the Zoning Board of Appeals for reconsideration. I think what happened, there was some kind of an error, oversight, some kind of misunderstanding relative to the present location of the restaurant at 284, and it's going down the street like this young lady indicated, a couple of doors, to 278. It has some extra parking. It also has, on Dover Street, 1 hour limits on the side, and across the street, there's a small park that also has 1 hour parking, and in front of the corner of 1 Dover Street and 278 Branch Street, there's on-street parking as well. The present location, she's right in saying that there isn't parking available. This new site will have some parking. It will give them a chance to expand the business. It's a family-owned business, and it's about 25 yards away from the present location. It used to be a dry cleaner's. It's not detrimental at all to the neighborhood. In fact, I think this new location would be an asset. Presently, they're leasing, and I believe they own this new site. So there's a couple of dynamics that I think that the Board of Appeals may have not been presented with. And that's why I'm in favor of the repetitive petition going back to the Zoning Board of Appeals. This family, it's a family-owned business, family-operated business, and they do a fairly decent job. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Zavalos. Anybody else like to speak in favor of the petition? Yes, sir. Come to the microphone if you would, please, and just state your name and address for the record if you would.
My name is Kuwit Kret. I'm residing at the 138 Tingsborough Road in North Chelmsford. I'm one of the employee in the city of Lowell, not for city of Lowell, but in a Lowell area for the last 19 years. My involvement also with the community activities such as the media through WUML on my volunteer work, and also my contact with the others Cambodian business people in this Lowell city. I found that one of the restaurants run by Mr. Peter T have contributed a lot to the core value of the Cambodian community, as well as his contribution in terms of sponsoring some of the event and also helping out the activity in Lowell, such as the Southeast Asian Water Festival. Sometimes he gave us the free lunch as a part of the support of the activity that we can find any other place beside Lowell City. And I support the his movement to the new dwelling that he's going to run over the Branch Street from the old location about 100 yards away. And I would like to see this restaurant, and I support his move to the new location. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else like to speak in favor of the petition? In favor? In favor? Hearing none. Anybody here like to, oh, go ahead, sir, I'm sorry. I apologize.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Samad Lim. I came to Lowell in 1988. I did not want to live here, but I'm stuck over here because I got a job, stuck over here. At that time, I started to know Mr. T. At that time, he was the owner of a jewelry store. His wife got sick and his life went down to hell. After his wife died, he had almost nothing. And a few years ago, he met another lady. He started to do the business that he owns a restaurant that he's having right now. And now he wants to move to a new place not far from his current restaurant. Mr. T, he's down to earth. He like to support any activity like water festival, soccer team that come to raise money. He always support. Anybody invite him to the wedding party, any fundraising, he always support. He very nice man and he very strong. He fell down, he tried to get up, fall down again, he tried to get up, to stand up on his feet. I beg you to give him the permission to open a restaurant at a new place. He's over 50 years old. He wished to have a small place to live until the day he get old. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else like to speak in favor of the petition? In favor? In favor? Hearing none. That part of the public hearing is closed. We'll turn it over to the part. Anybody want to speak in opposition? Anybody in opposition? In opposition? In opposition? Hearing none. That portion of the public hearing is closed. At this point in time, we'll turn the matter over to the board members. Any of the board members have any questions? Yes, Mr. Genman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So just a clarification for my own benefit. What's before us is actually to determine whether or not there are substantial changes in the application, correct?
Correct.
So that we can send it back to the ZBA for approval. So we're not really voting on whether or not we think it's a good project or a bad project. We're voting on whether or not the changes are substantial enough where it's worthy of further consideration by the ZBA.
That's correct.
Okay. So I just had a couple of questions for you, ma'am, please. Looking at the application, it says here that the substantial change in this plan are decreased number of tables and seating capacity?
No, it was just to be, everything would stay the same from the previous place to the new place. So meaning the 5 tables
Mm-hmm.
and the same number of employees.
So from your what is anything changed from the previous application that was denied by the zoning board?
គាត់ថាពីមុនហ្នឹងសុំប្រហែលតុកហ្នឹងដូរពីឥឡូវដូរពីមុនទីឥឡូវពីមុនសុំ I believe there was a misunderstanding of the number of tables that was presented at the first hearing.
Okay.
Which I wasn't here. I'm sorry, and but there was a change that it's going to be everything. The same number of tables from his current restaurant right now.
All right, so you think that in the previous hearing with the ZBA, it wasn't clear to them that the number of tables was changing. Is that true?
I believe, yes.
And what about the parking situation? You said that, it says here also that there is parking available in the lot across the street?
Yes,
Is that true?
yes, across the street where there's a liquor store, I believe it's a public parking. Before there was a misunderstanding on what that parking, who it belongs to.
Okay.
But, yeah.
Okay. So given that, Mr. Chairman, in my opinion, that if because of a communication barrier or whatever, if there was not a clear understanding in the ZBA about the issues regarding to seating and parking, that, in my opinion, it would be worthy of finding a substantial change in the application.
Thank you. Any other board members have any questions or concerns? Mr. Fischett?
Just to clarify, and I do have some photographs, there are two buildings on the corner. My understanding is this establishment is already located in one of the buildings. Right?
Yes, the one.
And you're moving probably 50 feet away to the other building.
Yes.
Right. So how long is the establishment been in operation?
For a very long time. 8 years.
Okay, so it's been operating and he's not looking to expand the capacity, and it's really just, we're talking
Just moving from
50 feet?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Lockhart, any questions or concerns?
No, I have no questions.
Mr. Claymore?
No questions, Mr. Chairman.
I went up and visited this site, and I met with the applicant, and he explained to me where he was He had an interpreter with him at that time, because I know when we spoke before, when he tried to communicate with me, he indicated that there was the language barrier. And I was informed, and I did speak with 2 members of the Zoning Board of Appeals, and they explained to me that when the project came before them the first time, and I see where they did vote in February, I think it was February 12th, at the Zoning Board of Appeals, all the board members there did vote that there was a material change for the matter to be presented back before us. And they were explained that they told me with the language barrier by your dad, that they didn't understand that he was moving down to the street. They thought there'd just be another whole new restaurant put in there. And they also didn't know that on the backside of the cleaning business, where he now has, I believe, 7 parking spaces, and then he gets 3 in the back, and he can also utilize the parking across the street at Dover Square. So what he had existingly, only parking he had was on the street. And the Zoning Board of Appeals members said they had a hard time understanding his exact request. And then after through an interpreter, when they came back before, they understood what the request was, how he was only moving down the street, how he does lease the building he's presently in now. He did buy the cleaner's business there. So he will be picking up additional parking. He is staying in the neighborhood, and there will not be 2 restaurants in the same area, where before, they were under the opinion that there'd be 2 restaurants within, actually on the same corner of each. And those are some of the concerns that was explained to me through the Zoning Board of Appeals members, as well as this applicant through an interpreter, when they asked me if I'd go up and look at the site. So I also believe at this point that there would be substantial material change for this board to vote to send it back to the Zoning Board of Appeals and to have them make the appropriate vote once it's before them for a full hearing. So at this point in time, any of the board members have any questions? If not, we'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make that motion that we enter finding that this petition represents substantial and material changes and that this be approved as repetitive.
I'll second the motion.
Been a motion made and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Chair votes yes. The vote is 5-0 in favor. So what happens here now is this matter will go back before the Zoning Board of Appeals for public hearing, and they'll have the final decision whether this petition should be granted or not. Thank you very much for coming down, and thanks everybody else who spoke on behalf of this project. Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Rosemont Street.
Yeah. At this point in time, we'll go back to the 99 Rosemont Street. Is the applicant here on Rosemont Street? Okay. Just to fill you in, sir, I read the notice for the repetitive petition, and I was informed that you're on your way. Mr. Claremont from our board has accused himself, that's why he's leaving the area now. And so basically, I read the advertisement already, how this matter needs a material and specific changes to go before the planning board. The matter was before the Zoning Board of Appeals, and it's back before us to see if those changes have been changed. So at this point in time, if you could please introduce yourself to us.
Yes, my name is Patrick Flaherty. I'm the principal of Flaherty Associates, engineering and surveying firm. So I'm representing the family in matters of engineering here. This project is located off of Riverside Avenue. I don't know if you're familiar with the area, but it's down by
We've been up
Rosemont. Have you been there?
Yeah, we've been there to the
Very
site.
good.
Yep.
And
We're very familiar with it. Yep.
you've seen the single house that's standing there now. And the idea is that house is to remain, and houses are to be built on either side of it, facing on opposite streets. And the original petition that was denied through the Board of Appeals in March of 2006 had very irregular lot lines. And the board didn't have problems with the construction in the floodplain because conservation had approved that whole idea of sill heights and all. But they did take objection to the odd shape of the lot lines. And I don't know if you have those in front of you.
But we have a
This-
plan that you submitted.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, let me. Okay.
Which one? We have one dated December 26th, excuse me, 27th, 06. Which other one we have? We have December 15th, 06. What date are you referring to, sir? Which plan?
This would be the Board of Appeals. Can you hear me all right, sir?
Yes.
This is the board, this is the general shape.
Okay, we have that plan. I think that one's, right. Okay, yes, I have that one. Thank you.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
This is the existing house that's shaded in blue. I know this is small, but, and rather than having regular lot lines that are rectangular, as the neighborhood generally has, I don't think there's any curved lines in the whole neighborhood. It's an old subdivision. The applicant chose these irregular lines, and I don't know the reason. I wasn't the applicant. There was another engineer involved, but I think it was so that they could get a bigger structure on the lot. So the board was objected to this and denied the application. We went back to the board in January and got a positive response from them, but we had changed the lot lines into something more regular, more rectangular. So there's quite a difference between these lines that were coming around the back. That would have been an odd-looking fence, to tell you the truth, coming around the back. The buildings are going to stay the same. The proposed buildings that are going on the lots look like this. Here's the original building right here. Here's another building on Lafayette Street, and another here on Alma Street. So we've kept the buildings in the same spots. We had to reconfigure the underground vaults for storage of water, and we went before Conservation in December of 2006 and got an approval from them to reconfigure the water storage area. Based on that, we went back to the Board of Appeals, and they like this system much better than the other system. And it looks much better, it looks neater. So they gave us a positive indication that they like this system, and they referred us to you.
So that was the vote by the Zoning Board of Appeals that was taken on January 22nd, 07, sir?
Yes.
Okay. Right, we have a copy of that in that packet, okay.
Yeah. So they all commented that this was a much better system, a much better setup, and they would refer this to you. They voted 5-0 in approval of
that
it.
there was substantial material change to bring it back to this board?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
It would still have to go back to them for the,
Right.
okay,
Yep.
for the floodplain aspect.
Yeah. I mean, basically when the repetitive petition, it has to start there, come back here, then go back to them, correct?
Correct, yes.
Yeah.
So it seems that there is a substantial change in those lot lines, and that's what they were looking for, and that's what we provided. I hope that you would see the same.
Mm-hmm.
There are no variances required for this other than the floodplain. The area is met for each lot. The side yard requirements are met for each lot for all the proposed structures, open space. Everything's been provided for. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Okay. What we'll do is we'll listen to everybody else in public here. If you have any questions about board members, we'll ask you, sir. Thank you. Anybody else would like to speak in favor of this project? In favor? Anyone else in favor? In favor? Hearing none at this time, we'll close that portion of public hearing. Anybody like to speak in opposition? In opposition? In opposition? Hearing none, that portion of public hearing is closed. Any of the board members have any questions or concerns?
I have none.
Okay, none? Steve? No?
No concerns. I just would say that those changes are not only substantial and material, but it's a heck of a lot better project this way, with the rectangular lots and the straight lot lines, consistent with the neighborhood. As you mentioned, if somebody ever wanted to put up a fence in the old configuration, it would have been a mess. So I think it looks much better this way. And I'd move that we find this changes to be substantial and material and refer it back to the ZBA.
There's a motion on the
I'll
floor?
second the motion.
And second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, chair votes yes. So the planning board will vote 4-0 in favor with 1 abstention. So what will happen in this matter here, this matter will go back to before the zoning board of appeals for a public hearing to consider this matter. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Good luck, sir. The next matter on the agenda will be a zoning amendment, 150, 200, and 250 Western Ave. The Lowell Planning Board will review an application relative to a proposed zoning amendment to extend the existing artist overlay district to include the above-mentioned address in Lowell. The area is presently zoned light industrial and will remain as the underlying zoning district. May we hear the case for the applicant, please? Just for the audience knows, since this is a zoning amendment, what this is before the planning board, for the board to make a recommendation, this matter will have to go before the city council. So the planning board's position here is that we will listen to the applicant for and the people against, and then whatever we determine tonight, the matter will be set up for public hearing before the city council at a future date. We're only a recommending body on any zone changes.
For the record, Mr. Chairman, James Flood, 81 Bridge Street, Lowell, Mass., representing BPV Lowell LLC, the present owner of, well, right now it's a condominium. They own units 1, 2, 4, and 5 of the Western Avenue condominium. With me tonight is Carl Fry, the manager. He's with me. He'll speak after, of BPV Lowell LLC, and he can go into the particulars of the artist overlay, of the use, the artist use. But we're here to request an affirmative endorsement in support of our request to extend the artist overlay district from Fletcher Street, really runs down the middle of the Pawtucket Canal to the end of our property, across our property to the middle of Western Avenue, and down to where it begins. It only encompasses our property involved in the old mill building. And I have it on that plan. It's in red. This shows it. It'll start here at Fletcher Street, and you come down along the middle of the Pawtucket Canal, all the way down to the end of our property, come up the middle of Western Avenue, come down and just incorporate the existing property that the mills are located in right now. And I have another plan that shows the mill complex with the parking, the existing building in the back and the parking here. So it won't stay, I'm sorry. But that shows what we've done there, and we've established a condominium there. As this board is most likely aware, at the present time, there are artists working within the building, and they're located in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th floor of Unit 2, which is C&D Mill, and I think probably a lot of you have been over there to see the work that's being done. If this request is approved, it would be the intention of my client to construct residential units in Unit 1, which is A mill, and in Unit 4, which is G mill. This is, and as you can look at the condominium documents, we're restricting this to 54 units at the most that we would construct in the whole mill complex if this is approved. And I think, you know, with the vibrant artist community within the city of Lowell, this is an opportunity for us to provide some affordable living spaces for them. The uses would be similar to what's going on downtown in Lowell, and we'd ask that we get an affirmative endorsement from you so we can go forward. With me is Carl Fry, and he can explain the whole project.
Thanks, Floody. Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, how are you tonight? Thank you. We're really happy to be here. When we started this project about 2 years ago, building working studios for artists in the 122 Western Avenue complex, I don't think anyone believed that we would follow through and do what we said we were going to do, but we did. We're continuing to do so. We're continuing to advance the agenda of affordable space for artists in your city. I understand completely, through detailed discussions with your staff and the Office of Planning and Economic Development, why the staff report cannot strongly support including the building in the Artist Overlay District. I also know that in the 2 years since Collins and Aikman filed bankruptcy, we've worked diligently to fill the space with industrial users. They don't exist. To the best of our knowledge, Western Avenue Studios represents the largest artist community under one roof in the northeastern United States. Including the building in the Artist Overlay District would be a fitting tribute, acknowledging the substantial contributions to the arts that the artists have made in Lowell. I love your city's slogan, your seal, art is the handmaid of human good, reading from the wall behind you. If we are able to eventually get residential units in the building, and I'm not sure that we will, economically it's not particularly viable right now, that doesn't diminish the fact that as the largest concentration of working artists in your city, the building should be in the Artist Overlay District. We will stipulate limiting the number of units to 54, and will further stipulate that they will be sold to working artists at prices qualifying as affordable under the Mass General laws regulating affordable housing. I'd be very happy to answer any detailed questions you'd like on that, but I know there are folks interested in speaking tonight besides myself. So we request your favorable vote on our proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else like to speak in favor?
My name is Maxine Farkas, and I live at River Place Towers, and I have a studio at Western Avenue Studios. I'm here with many of my colleagues from Western Avenue in support of the application relative to a proposed zoning amendment to extend the existing Artist Overlay District to include 150, 200, and 250 Western Avenue in Lowell. Western Avenue Studios, which is located in this complex, represents the largest concentrations of working artists in the Merrimack Valley, if not in eastern Massachusetts, yet it is not officially part of the Artist Overlay District. The evolution of the complex at Western Avenue is the result of a collaboration between artists and a development team that is highly sensitive to the needs of and economic constraints faced by the artist community in Lowell. In June, with the completion of the third floor of the A Mill, we will have 106 studios, which will be providing affordable workspace to 139 artists. This is in addition to a number of more traditional employers: Classic Elite Yarns, M. Horan and Company, FI Office, P&J Precision Machining, and Alpha Imaging. This is a compatible mix of uses that is working very well for us. One of the problems that has dogged the Artist Overlay District is the issue of suitable and affordable live workspace for artists. The conversion of underutilized properties in the downtown to residential usage under the auspices of the Arts District has gone a long way toward revitalizing the housing market in downtown. However, the supply of affordable artist live workspace has been limited. Artists require space in which to work. Studio space at Western Avenue ranges from 300 to 1,000 square feet. This is just working space. This is not living space. Effective artist live-work space can require 1,500 to 2,500 square feet to create a really usable living and working environment. The only way to make this kind of space affordable for artists is to look to areas that are zoned light industrial and at spaces that do not require extensive renovation and remediation. Beyond the need for space, it should be recognized that artists are, in general, a messy and sometimes noisy crew. And much of what we do is frowned upon by conventional condo associations. And we need to be in proximity to uses that are not overly sensitive to noise or mess. The developers of Western Avenue have consistently demonstrated that they understand the affordability and space issues facing the artist community and have made a commitment to sustaining the community by creating a compatible mix of uses at the complex to ensure the economic vitality of the project. The artists at Western Avenue are in accord with their request to extend the Artist Overlay District to include 150, 200, and 250 Western Avenue. We urge you to extend the boundaries. Thank you very much. And I'm going to give this to you. We actually signed it.
Sure, thank you. Thank you very much, ma'am. So these other people who have signed on here are people who you stated are in favor of the zoning change?
Yeah, those are all artists at Western Avenue who are
Okay.
in favor.
Okay, just so it goes on and says to the planning board, City of Lowell, we support the urge for the planning board to extend the boundaries to the artist district to include Western Avenue Studios here in Lowell, and there are several signatures. Approximately 40, as I can read, give or take. Some are signed as, looks like, yeah, I think one is husband and wife, and the other one's assigned individually, so it's approximately 40 people in favor. We'll put this into the record for our minutes. James, if we could put that into the record if we could, please? Thank you. Anybody else like to speak in favor of the zone change?
I'm Megan Moore. I have a studio on Western Avenue. I also live in Lowell at 226 Baldwin Street. Mr. Chair, members of the board, with great respect for the work you do and your process, and recognizing the weight of public participation, the artist community in attendance, would like to offer you the opportunity to save us all a great deal of time. We are all prepared to speak and address you individually on the record. However, if you will organize the public participation such that anyone opposed to the topic under consideration be asked to speak first, and those in support speak second, it is possible that we will allow the letter that Maxine just read to stand instead of our individual comments. In other words, and to be clear, if it is obvious to you that there is overwhelming support for extending the Artist Overlay District to include Western Avenue Studios as described in the petition before you, we can keep this hearing very, very short. Thank you.
Could I just ask one question? Are most of those people who signed that petition in the presence here now?
Can we all raise our
Okay.
hands who signed the
All right.
petition?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll,
I can sign it, I didn't sign it.
okay. If, what we could do, just for the public record, if each person just wants to come to the mic and state your name and just say you're in approval, and then we'll have it all in the record if you could. Okay?
Address too would
We'll
be
do it
good.
one at a time. Just come on up and state your name and say you're in favor, and we'll have it all on the record who everybody is, okay? That way everybody has a chance to be heard.
Mr. Chairman, name and address.
Sure, and your name and address if you would, please. Sure.
Okay, I'm Donna Berger. I live in Chelmsford, but I have a studio at Western Avenue.
Okay. Thank you.
Deborah Dixon, 200 Market Street, Lowell.
Thank you.
I'm in approval.
Laura Alexander, Lancaster, Massachusetts.
Thank you.
Bill Bradbury. I have a studio at Weston Avenue, and I live in Drake.
Thank you.
Lynn Lupian, 786 Stevens Street, and in Lowell here, and I also have a studio as well.
Thank you.
Ashley Wells Smith, and I live right down the street.
What address is that, please? Just give us your address.
70 Austin.
Thank you.
John Greenwald. I have a studio in Western Avenue, and I live at 24 Robert Street.
Thank you.
Lisa Bisson. Sorry, I have laryngitis.
Okay.
I have a studio at Western Avenue, and I live in Drakehead.
Thank you.
Gene Bisson, 25 6th Street, Drakehead, and I have a studio at Western Ave.
Thank you.
Leonard Hall, 209 Salem Street. I've lived and worked in Lowell for 29 years.
Thank you, sir.
Paula Richards from 46 Highland Ave here in Lowell. I have a studio at Western Ave, and it's the start of a big dream coming true. Help us out.
Thank you.
Joe Quinlan, 52 Lawrence Drive. I have a studio at Western Ave also.
Thank you.
I'm Steve Severson, 269 Dutton Street, and I'm also the president of the Arts League of Lowell, representing about 250 artists in town, and we are in support of this action.
Thank you.
I'm Rebecca Wetmore. I live in the Mass Mills Apartments, and I have a studio at Western Ave.
Thank you.
I'm Andrew Wetmore, also live in Mass Mills. I don't have a studio at Western Ave, but I strongly support the extension of the overlay.
Thank you, sir. And thank each and every one of you. At this point in time, I'll ask if there's anybody else who'd like to speak in favor? In favor? In favor? Hearing none. At this point in time, that part of the portion of the public hearing is closed. We'll turn it over. Anybody want to speak in opposition? In opposition? In opposition? Hearing none. That portion of the public hearing is closed. Any of the board members have any questions or concerns?
Mr. Chairman, if I may?
Yes.
First of all,
go ahead, Mr. Bichette.
Certainly would like to thank everyone for coming here to speak on this issue. I do have some questions. Just part of in deliberating over this is taking into account the city's master plan and the acre urban revitalization plan and the preservation of industrial zone space in the city. However, the reality is a lot of the land that's zoned light industry is we haven't attracted light industry in this city for the most part for decades to any great volume. But I do know there was a design in mind to have space to relocate businesses, because part of the challenge of the acre section of the city was identified in the acre revitalization plan was the incompatible uses within that part of the city. And one of the concerns in looking at this is, I know it was mentioned that the artists could be noisy, and it's very nice to be thoughtful of other residents in a condo association. But my concern is the potential conflicts between industries that may be located in a industrial zone versus people living in an artist condominium. And I know we're running into some areas in the downtown area where there's some conflicts with retail and nightclub entertainment and residents living there. So obviously that's a bit of a challenge as we look at this. But also realizing that here is a viable use for this space. I guess so I can understand this. It is functioning right now. It is zoned for the use of artists to work as a studio. They're looking to you're looking to have this be a residence on top and workspace like the traditional artist overlay districts that are being used right now. And to what's the perceived benefit? I just so I can understand because I do know it's being used right now as artist space.
It's a commercial use right now,
right,
for artists. So
for artists.
We'd
So by making this a residential neighborhood with the workspace, I'm just concerned of potential conflicts, and the realization is I'd love to keep the space available for light industry, but the reality is I don't see a lot of light industry coming in. But if you could elaborate that on that, I'd appreciate it.
Delighted to, Mr. Frechette. Thank you for the question. The building is kind of a unique building. It's a complex of 5 different buildings. Right now, the working artist studios are concentrated in this building, which backs up to the canal and is a 5-story mill building with 20,000 square foot floor plates. So the top 3 floors, and we are proposing to do an additional floor this summer, have already been renovated, fully occupied, all the fire, health, life safety upgrades necessary for the occupancy of the building as working studios. This is another 5-story mill building. The total building is about 50,000 square feet. There are 10,000 square foot floor plates. I would take a break from describing the building here to point out that in the 2.5 years that we've owned the building, your own staff and planning and economic development would confirm that we've supported every tenant who's had to be replaced or displaced in Lowell, who's wanted to take a look at the building. We haven't just supported them, we've embraced them and we've accommodated everyone we could, yet we still have 80,000 square feet vacant. It's a situation that can't last for us. We're suffering mightily under the weight of an empty building right now. We put in the top 2 floors of this building Classic Elite Yarns. They were being relocated from the Jam Plan, moving out of Jackson Street. They took a 7-year lease. They occupy the 4th floor as office space and the 5th floor is their warehouse space. We put in a $275,000 6,000-pound combination passenger freight elevator to make the building attractive to industrial, yet we still have 2 empty floors in that building. We have just started build out of the 3rd floor in here for an additional 18 artists' working studios, and they'll be ready for, they're fully leased. They leased in 1 day, and we have a waiting list again for working studios in the building. The center section of the building right here is about 27,000 square feet. It's 2 stories in the front and it's single story in the back. Alpha Imaging is a company that's been located in Lowell for about 15 years. They were most recently in Wanalancet Mills, working as a light industrial user in what is really an office complex. The space wasn't particularly efficient for them. We completed our condominium conversion. They wanted to own their own space. It was the catalyst for us providing permanently affordable space for the artists, which you'll hear about over time. Now that the building has been converted to a condominium, we sold this section to Alpha Imaging. We closed last month. If you're familiar at all with real estate values in and around the Boston area, Alpha Imaging is now a permanent light industrial resident of your city at a price of $60 a square foot, fully renovated. The space is terrific. I would invite you over to look at it anytime. Jim Murtis, owner of the company, is particularly proud of the space and the fact that he owns it now. The building that we cannot find a tenant for, that we were proposed putting 36 of the 54 units in, is this 80,000 square foot building on the end. In terms of its compatibility of uses in the neighborhood, the building has a very unique position in that this entire side of the building fronts on the canal. The only thing across the street is the Boys and Girls Club. Western Avenue is the entire frontage on this side of the building, and across from that is a parking lot and the railroad tracks. There's nothing that's going to go on in close proximity to this building that is going to bother anyone who lives here, or conversely, anyone working here is going to bother anybody else. There's just nothing in close proximity. It's not like on the other side of the tracks on Rock Street, where there are houses next to auto body shops, next to scrap yards. It's a very self-contained environment. The fact that Jim Murtis just bought this section of the building for his business, he's delighted by the fact that we're in here tonight looking to get 36 apartments in here. It makes for a very vibrant community to have a mix of clean light industry, industrial, residential space, which is what an artist's working studio is, and then the constant activity of 100 working studios in this section of the building. So the building itself answers a lot of the questions or the concerns that you might have about mixing up a use in one complex.
Just one question is, do you anticipate some of that work, some of that studio space vacating the current location and going into that, some of those artists taking up residence and possibly moving out of there? Or is there to appear to be a demand to fill the space even if that becomes vacant?
I must say on the record, I'd be delighted if artists in Lowell ended up occupying all of the units that were built here. I know there are some who would consider doing it, and the first night we discussed the idea, several wanted to get on a waiting list. we have a waiting list for the working studios now. You might find it interesting that the first night that we discussed it was also the photography month in Lowell. We were opening an exhibit on the 3rd floor of this building. One of the artists exhibiting is an artist from New York. He was a photographer who also has a master's from MIT's Center for Real Estate Development. I had no idea he was there. When I was introduced to him, I asked him if he would sit in on our discussion of possibly converting this to live-work artist residences. When we were done, and all the artists had asked all their questions and folks were filtering out, I buttonholed him and I said, what do you think? We were proposed selling these in the $100 to $125 square foot range. And he said if you didn't sell them immediately locally, one ad in the underground newspapers in the New York arts area, and you'd be sold out in a weekend. You must understand that the price that we would propose selling these units is about half of the market price now in Lowell, even in the downturn. If market rate condos had gotten up the luxury end, up, approaching $300 a square foot, they'd probably drop back to $250 or under, and we're suggesting that these would be sold in the $100 to $125 square foot range. So to answer the question directly, we might lose some of the studio tenants to a residence studio. Right now we have a waiting list for these, and we don't advertise.
Very good. No, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Fry. I appreciate that. Now, Mr. Chairman, I have to say that, like I said, it is frustrating with the trying to preserve the industrial space, but for waiting for something that may never come. At least, as I can see, I think they've given consideration to some of the concerns that lie within the industrial zone. So I, again, appreciate the answering the questions, and I think it's actually lays out quite nicely considering the challenges in that area. Thank you.
I might, Mr. Chairman, if I may, just one more comment I wanted to get on the record. I think it's critical for your board and staff to understand in real dollars and cents what we're talking about when we talk about affordable space for artists. So this is a floor plan that we used to lease the 3rd floor of the A Mill 4 weeks ago this Saturday at the Open Studios in March. The pricing of these units, you can pick any one you'd like, but here's unit 4. It's 434 square feet. It's got 2 large double-hung windows. These happen to face east. It's a bright, nice rectangular studio. It rents for $265 a month, heat included.
Thank you, sir. Anything else, Mr. Any other board members have any questions or concerns?
I have just a couple of
Sure. Mr. Lockhart, go ahead,
things,
please.
Mr. Chairman. With this print that we have in front of us, we just have the zoning area defined, and it doesn't have any buildings on it. Does this include the old Joan Fabrics building over there?
It is.
Is that what you're referring to on Building A or something?
It is. The only building that the legal description, the only extension of the Artist Overlay District would include the building we own at what we call 122 Western Avenue. The actual addresses are 150, 130, 140, however they're stipulated in the legal description. But it is the one building. It's a 5-building complex.
It is the old Joan Fabric building.
Right, it's on the south side of Western Avenue, between Western Avenue and the canal, and it's the only building that's affected by the zone change.
All right, that wasn't clear with the print. Just a clarification. I just would like to make a comment regarding the space. Light industrial as it's defined today, and through my experience, if I owned a light industrial business, I'd look to new space first for the different types of industries there are around here. And then I might get to that type of space. So I think, that should be considered in the decision, that's all. The demand is not there, and I think you've kind of substantiated that. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
One question for, it will stay light industrial, correct, Mr.
Right,
Frank?
the underlying
So the zone will
zoning
not
law.
change.
No.
It would just be that if they want to come in there for the Artist Overlay District, they'd need a special permit before the Board of Appeals.
Right.
Okay, thank you. I just want to make that, so we're not changing the zone, it's just to allow the artist into that zone.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
thank you. Any other board members have questions? Mr. Jemmett, go ahead, please. Steve?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I actually had a question for James. James, in the memo that the DPD produced for us, they they stated a number of reasons why maybe this wouldn't be a good idea. And, most of them revolved around protecting industrial zones and the need to not allow residential encroachment on industrial areas. But a couple of things jump out at me, and one is that would be required a change to the acre plan, because apparently there are plans to relocate some industrial activities currently in the acre to this site. And the other one was that the fact that this is being watched carefully by a number of other industrial property owners in the abutting area, the neighborhood, that have been asked repeatedly and refused support of DPD in securing residential uses. So I wonder if you could kind of give me your feedback on those. Do we foresee a way of addressing those? Is there something we could do with the acre plan to accommodate the needs of relocating?
Yes. To answer the first question of the acre urban renewal plan, this would likely require a change to that plan, which would just provide a similar process to what we're going through tonight and with zoning changes. As the urban renewal plan is a formal approved document from the city and the state's perspective, it would just require a similar round of approvals as what we're doing tonight and city council approvals. With that said, it's been done in the past to other plans as well as the acre plan when uses have come up that the city council and the planning board have deemed sufficient or appropriate for an area. Regarding your other question with in relation to the other question was, can you repeat that other question?
The other point was regarding other industrial property owners in the abutting area of the neighborhood who have been asked repeatedly and refused support for residential uses. Have any of those requests been for artist overlay or live and work type?
No, at this
facilities?
time, this is the first such scenario whereby the proposal to extend the artist overlay district to a site in the Western Avenue area and in the acre urban renewal area, at least in this section of the acre urban renewal district, has been proposed, at least to my knowledge. The artist overlay district is primarily located in the downtown district, and it was set up prior to the most recent round of all the zoning changes prior to 2004. With many, as noted in the memo, with many of the zoning changes that happened in 2004, much of the artist overlay district, the underlying zoning, was changed such that residential uses were allowed through a special permit process similar to what's allowed in the artist overlay district. This is the first proposed extension of the artist overlay district to an industrial site in the acre district. One concern that I believe is part of what DPD is trying to express is that maybe this could be a domino effect whereby if this happens, then another industrial site may be part of an artist overlay extension, leading to another industrial site being part of an artist overlay extension. And those are just concerns that we wanted to make sure that the board was aware of prior to voting on such an approval. Again, it is the board's decision, and this does still require city council approval, so if that issue does come up and is a more formal issue in front of the city council, they can take that into account as well.
All right, thank you. One other question regarding the roadway there, the Western Avenue roadway, where it comes out, or actually doesn't come out, to Fletcher and Dutton. Are there any plans, either by you or by the city, to try and correct that situation? It seems like that would make this site much more attractive.
I don't think there's anyone here who wouldn't agree with you. I know all the artists would be very happy to have that grade crossing reopened. It's not something that we really can spare the time to work on, frankly. I understand that Guilford Transportation is nearly impossible to work with. We'd be happy for anybody to take it up, and we'd support it wholeheartedly. But it's difficult to get grade crossings reopened once they're closed.
All right, I must say, I didn't realize we had such a concentration of artists in that building. I'm overwhelmed by the fact that is this the largest concentration in the Northern Hemisphere or something like that?
Oh, really?
Honestly, when I came here tonight, I had a feeling that I just didn't see how this could fly, because reading the Artist Overlay District description here, it says the Artist Overlay District is established for the purpose of encouraging artists to both live and work in the downtown, and thereby promoting a venue for and encouraging further concentration of art, cultural, and entertainment attractions in the downtown area. to me, that conjures up the image of the artist loft downtown, where the artist lives upstairs and downstairs is the studio, and people can come from restaurants after dinner and kind of meander into the shop and buy a painting. This is a little different. It's a bit of a stretch, but you have a good case. And as Mr. Frechette pointed out, it seems as though the light industrial, while it may be ideal for light industrial, it doesn't seem to be something that we're able to attract there. So this is kind of an innovative idea, and I think it probably has legs.
Thank you, Steve. Joe, any questions?
Just a couple of comments. I certainly agree with my colleagues and Mr. Frechette in particular, as he points out that the light industries aren't flocking to this area right now. It certainly would seem to be an appropriate use to expand the artist overlay district for just this type of use. I understand that we don't necessarily want to set a precedent for all the other areas, but I think we need to take each application on its own merits. And I believe that in this particular case, I'd certainly be in favor of recommending the extension of the overlay district to the council. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I know when I went down there the other day, I mean, if you look at this city maps, and it tells you it's right off Dutton Street, but no way you get in off Dutton Street. So basically, if anybody who's paying attention at home, it's basically you have to come in off the School Street, because it's right behind the Dutton Street car wash. But when you go into the site, it comes to an end like this, and there's no way to cut through. And I did notice that on the building, the only number I could find on the building was Hub Mill Factory, which was 122. And I looked at the numbers across the street further down, so I could basically figure out where the new area was being referred to. Obviously, by looking at the site, I thought that by adding this type of overlay district to the site, it would improve the site, it'd be a more attractive site, and I thought that by the fact that it would still be regulated as light industrial, that would still have that zone if something wanted to come in there in the future. Basically, as other board members indicated, you have a zone, you try to get things in there that allowed in that zone. We are not changing the zone, so if anybody wanted to come in there at light industry in that zone, they could still do so. And for this matter to be regulated, it could be properly regulated through a special permit. Therefore, I'm also basically in favor of the zoning change. At this point in time, entertain a motion from the board members.
Mr. Chairman,
I just wanted to make one more comment. Just, and I think Carl said it before, but I think the difference between this project and what's downtown is this is going to be restricted to artists' live workspace, and it's going to be affordable. I think what happened, I think James said it when he responded to Steve, that what happened downtown, those that were intended to be artist live workspace became residential units because that's what's allowed under the zoning. But we intend to restrict this to artists only and have a control over that and make them affordable. So I think this will truly be artist live workspace.
Thank you, Councilor.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the extension of the artist overlay district to include the addresses indicated on the petition. I just make a comment. I think it's important that we point out that in this particular case, I think it's pretty well substantiated that this industrial zone is not going to work in that regard, and that there may be other cases where that's not the situation, but here it doesn't look like it's going to work.
It is a motion on the floor.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to add one minor amendment to
Absolutely.
that and request that the city explore opening Western Avenue to Dutton Street at the same time. Thank you. The reason being that, one, it would make it easier for all the residents, but the other thing is, it really connects it to the downtown. If we're going to make it an artist overlay district, it ought to be in some way connected to the downtown. Right now, it's really detached from the downtown because of that. So I'd like to add that as an amendment to the motion.
I think it could alleviate some of the congestion of the traffic to people going through downtown and coming to this area.
It would open it up.
I'd like to second the motion at the same time.
Okay. So the motion's made and second. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Chair votes yes. So the planning board tonight is voting 5-0 to recommend to the city council that the Western Ave zoning amendment be approved. What will happen is, within approximately 3 to 4 weeks, there will be a city council public hearing. At that point in time, our recommendation will go to the council. They can do whatever they like with our recommendation, but it's not binding on them, and basically it'll be up to the city council to either approve or deny the request for the zone change. I want to thank everybody for coming down tonight and their participation. It makes our job a lot easier when we consider what's going on in the neighborhoods, when we have the neighborhood input, and really appreciate everybody coming down here. Thank you very much for your participation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah.
The next matter on the agenda will be the special permit of 1881, 1883, and 1857.1 Middlesex Street. Per order of the Land Court, the Lowell Planning Board will review an application by Middlesex Partners Limited in Lexi Development for special permit review concerning driveway length in conjunction with the development with the property was located above name address. The project includes the demolition of the existing building on site and the construction of 128 housing units in 4 buildings on 402,930 square foot lot with associated parking and landscaping. A special permit is sought to allow access to the site via a 426-foot-long driveway through a curb cut located at 1881/1883 Middlesex Street, across from Dingwell Street. The current petition is being heard for special permit review under 6.72 of the zoning ordinance. Just as way of background on this matter, this matter was before this board back in, during the summer, and on a couple of occasions. Basically, the matter was before the board on June 19th. Then on June 19th, after public hearing, which was held in the mayor's reception room, the matter was continued to the July 17th meeting. On the July 17th matter, after a public hearing, the planning board voted 3-1 in favor of the site plan, which was approved. And at that point in time, the vote was 3-1 in favor of the special permit. Since the applicant needed 4 votes for the special permit, and we only had 4 board members at the time, and I voted to deny the approval, the matter of the special permit was denied. Then the matter came back before the planning board on October 6th of 2006, and we still only had 4 planning board members at that time. They come in requesting a special, for vote for changes, for material changes and special changes. At that point in time, after the public hearing, the matter was allowed that were material changes. At that point in time, there was a motion to have the matter continued by the applicant, because the applicant was going to go back before the Conservation Board, because some of the questions and concerns were the width of the driveway. At that point in time, the matter did come back before the planning board, and at that point in time, there was 4 board members present. I was not present at that meeting. As a result, since the site plan was already approved, again for the special permit, they needed all 4 board members' votes. At that point in time, the vote was 3-1 in favor, and therefore the special permit was not approved. After that happened, the matter went to litigation in land court, and then when the matter went before the land court, we received an order from the land court, and I'll paraphrase the land court order. I did bring extra copies if anybody here in attendance would like to know what the order is from the land court. I think I have about 7 or 8 of those. If anybody would like a copy, they may come up and grab a copy. Basically, what the order of remand was, that the planning board must, the matter is sent back to the board, is Middlesex Partners Limited Partnership and Lexi Development have applied for the city planning board for site plan approval and a special permit in conjunction with the proposed development of 128 residential units. Site plan approval was duly granted with conditions, with the board finding that the site plan and narrative met all the acceptable site plan practices and standards within the city of Lowell. A special permit was necessary to allow the drive in excess of 200 feet. In order for the special permit to issue, the planning board must find that the driveway will provide safe and reasonable access for fire, police, and emergency vehicles, which is under City Zoning Code Ordinance 6.72. After the hearing, the planning board letters were presented by the City of Lowell Police Department, the City of Lowell Fire Department, and Trinity Ambulance, the contractor hired by the city to provide emergency services, all attesting to the safety and reasonable accessibility of the proposed driveway. No contrary evidence was presented on any of these issues. An objection was raised that the proposed development would result in additional traffic on Middlesex Street, but the plaintiffs presented unrebuttable testimony from a traffic engineer that the location of the proposed driveway was safe. 4 of the 5 planning board members attended were here, and it goes on to say that the 5th planning board member was not present. It indicates in a footnote that I was not here because I was undergoing major surgery. Therefore, I was unable to be present on that day. 3 voted in favor of granting the special permit, and only 1 opposed. The special permit did not issue because the ordinance requires to find that the driveway provides safe and reasonable access, as indicated, for fire, police, emergency vehicles by a vote of at least 4 board members. The plaintiff contends that the board's failure to make such findings was arbitrary and capricious. This is obviously a substantial project. The approval or rejection, which potentially has significant consequences for the city. Recent legislation from the Massachusetts General Court suggests it is also of importance to the Commonwealth as a whole. See Chapter 205, Act of 2006. This is not to say that it should not be scrutinized closely or rejected, if appropriate, but as parties agreed at the case management conference, it does mean that the circumstances of this case that it deserves to be considered and voted upon by the full board. Accordingly, it is hereby ordered by the land court that the case be hereby is remanded to the board for the proposed of considering at the meeting or meetings attended by all the board members, all evidence presented to it on the issues of the proposed driveway, safety and access for police, fire, and emergency vehicles, and based on the evidence to decide if a finding is warranted that the proposed driveway will provide safe and reasonable access for fire, police, emergency vehicles, as under our ordinance 6.72. Goes on and says that all board members shall be in attendance, and that the matter should be held and advertised, when public hearings should be held open, and that there should be decision within no later than 30 days. The matter came up before us earlier in March, and we brought it to Attorney Flood's attention when he was at a previous meeting, and indicated that we would not have a full board at that last meeting. And Mr. Flood had no objections on continuing the meeting until April, so we didn't meet the 30-day waiver. He had no problem with going after the 30 days. And also the matter goes on as ordered that if there is remedies to support if any of the findings are unfavorable tonight, that this matter will go back before the land court as ordered. As indicated, there's a copy of the orders there, and this is by the judge of the land court, Judge Long. So basically tonight, the only thing that we here to consider by order of the court, which is also what we consider any special permit, under this matter, when any roadway is over 200 feet, is that the board members must find the driveway will provide safe and reasonable access for fire, police, and emergency vehicles. All the other matters in regards to site plan have already been discussed and voted on, so those aren't properly in front of us tonight. So our consideration tonight is for the sole purpose of whether that driveway that is over 200 feet, whether it must be, provide safe and reasonable access for fire, police, and emergency vehicles. With that brief history, I'll turn it over to Attorney Flood.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I mean, I think you're all familiar with this project, but for the record, I represent Middlesex Partners Limited Partnership, the owner of the property in the back, and Lexi Development LLC, the proposed developer. With me tonight is Steve Biardi and Jeff Miller, the proposed developers, Katie Bomagen and Joe Pesnola from Hancock Associates. I got Jeff Dirk from Vanessa and Associates, our traffic engineer, and I got Phil Nyman, who's co-counsel on the land court case with me. As the judge's order stated, the question before the board is whether the proposed driveway will provide safe and reasonable access for fire, police, and emergency vehicles in accordance with section 6.72 of the zoning ordinance. I have resubmitted, well, let me just, a little bit of history too. As I presented at the meeting on November 20th, the proposed drive is, as shown on the plan, is 426 feet in length, the travelway at 24 feet. I discussed the width of the driveway with the Steve Curran, the city engineer, who thought the 24 feet was more than sufficient, with Ed Walsh, the DPW commissioner, who said this width was sufficient, and also the police and the fire department. I have resubmitted tonight to this board copies of the letters first from Lieutenant Meehan from the police department, who stated that access and egress is more than adequate for police and emergency purposes. And he also added that the proposed drop-off and pick-up for school children is sufficient also. I've also submitted a letter from John Chemley of Trinity Ambulance, who is the company that provides emergency services for the city, indicating that the proposed driveway will provide safe and reasonable access for all emergency vehicles from Middlesex Street to the buildings. Also submitted a letter from Captain Weber of the fire department, who agrees with everybody else that it's a safe roadway. And I've also submitted to you a copy of a report submitted by Ann Barton back in July, who was the acting transportation engineer for the city, indicating that she agreed with the traffic report that was prepared by Vanessa and Associates, and stated the proposed drive site is adequate. So I think based on the statements from those city departments that would handle both the emergency, police, and fire, that we presented a case that this proposed driveway is safe and adequate for those vehicles. I'm going to have Katie go over the plan. You weren't here, Mr. Linehan, for the last meeting. She can show what's shown here. If you have any questions for the traffic engineer, he's here. But I think we've met our burden, and I'd ask that hopefully that you would support this request for special permit. Go ahead, Katie.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Katie Bommingen. I'm an engineer with Hancock Associates. I'm just going to briefly go through the changes to the driveway that I made prior to the last hearing. What we've done is it's a 24-foot wide driveway, the whole length of the driveway. We went back before the Conservation Commission and they approved this layout. What we've done is added guardrail to both sides of the road, and then in proximity of where we're getting close to the wetland area, we've added a 6-foot-high chain link pedestrian fence on both sides to protect anyone that may be walking along that route. There's still the 4-foot sidewalk that goes the entire length of the driveway from the street all the way into the site, connecting those pedestrian access ways to the buildings once within the site. Also, we have a proposed bus shelter at the entranceway, which is also shown and depicted on the detail sheet in the drawing set as a place where school children can go to wait for the bus on that side of the road. If you have any questions for me, I will be here to answer any.
We'll go forward with the public hearing. If we have any questions, we'll ask them. Thank you. Anybody else at this time want to speak on behalf of the applicant before I turn it over to the public? Let me just, okay, I'm sorry. Anybody else want to speak on behalf of the applicant? If not, I'll turn it over to the public. Okay, at this point in time, I'll hear those all who are in favor of the project.
Yes, sir.
You in favor?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Can you state your name and address for the record if you would, sir?
Yes, sir. I'm Peter Weiss. I'm chairman of the board of Bradford Industries, and I live in Boston, but I've been in Lowell now since 1967. It's pretty interesting when I heard the artists come up and the members of the board talk about light industry not coming to Lowell, which I believe is very true. And we have a property that we really don't need, and we can't get any light industry to come into that property. Let me just say, I came to Lowell in 1967, I believe, with an idea. I met two fellows on Market Street who had a little company. They weren't doing very well, and we took the idea, and we made a $100 million company out of it in Lowell. We went public in 1971, I believe, after 3 years of being together. We've been in Lowell all that time. My company used to be just in the shoe business. We used to support shoe companies. There was no more shoe business in the United States. So we were able to turn our company around. Now we're involved with the automotive business, which isn't a heck of a lot easier than the shoe business. But we've managed to survive. We've been in Lowell a long time, sir, and we've been pretty good citizens of Lowell. We really can't afford to stay in this property that we're trying to sell to these gentlemen who want to make a very nice condominium property out of it. We have a lot of work to do within our business. We have a lot of investments to make, and we're very anxious to go ahead and expand our Lowell industry. We're one of the few industries really left in Lowell, manufacturing industries, where the average guy can get a job in our place and make a reasonable living. It's also pretty interesting, some of the objections that I heard regarding traffic and from some of the abutters. The other day I was driving down to Middlesex Street trying to get into the driveway, and there was a 18-wheeler or whatever it is that comes and picks up our product, which is in quite large rolls, as we make, we're a big supplier for airbag material. And I stood there for about 8 minutes in my car as he was trying to get into that driveway, which is rather difficult for an 18-wheeler. So I think it's our abutters and the people of Lowell would be a lot better off if people were trying to go to their apartments than trying to get 18-wheelers into our driveway, which we've been doing for a lot of years, and sometimes it creates a big headache. We would really appreciate if the members of the board would approve this project. I think it's good for Lowell. To be honest with you, it's good for Bradford, and I'm sure it's going to be good for the developers and the people who are going to live in this very nice development overlooking the Merrimack River. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else like to speak in favor? In favor? In favor. Hearing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. Anybody like to speak in opposition?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, my name is William Emmerich. I live at 1852 Middlesex Street. And before I get started, I'd like to thank Mr. Linehan for visiting the neighborhood yesterday evening. Unfortunately, I wasn't there, and for any other of the board members who may have visited the neighborhood. I am opposed to this special permit. The road remains the same length, same width. You know, I really don't think that's the problem. You could make that thing 4 lanes wide. It still wouldn't be a problem. The problem is the neighborhood itself, Middlesex Street. It takes 5, 10, maybe sometimes 15 minutes to go a few hundred yards to get into my driveway. It can take me 5 or 10 minutes to get out of the driveway. The entrance to the driveway is directly across from the entrance to Bradford Industries, so I know the trouble those trucks have, especially when cars park on there. I called the police a couple weeks ago because there was a car at the corner and there was a tractor trailer out there for 20 minutes. Now, emergency vehicles can pass that road. They can get up and down that road, no problem. Big deal. Can they get through the intersection to get to it? Can they get across the bridge to get to the hospitals? I mean, the place is an abomination now. I mean, right now, this board is like you have your hands on the gates at the dam. The river's flooding. Do you shut it off or do you open it up? And right now, that intersection is flooded. The whole neighborhood is flooded. It's not safe. As far as the road goes, it's a private road. If somebody parks on there, do the police have the authority to get down there, ticket people, tow them? It's a private road. It's a private development. Is the fire department going to be responsible for digging out the fire hydrants? We know they're not, no, the city's not responsible for plowing, but somebody has to take care of that. A question that's somewhat related, well, what about the commuter rail line that's proposed to go from Lowell to Nashua? Is that going to be on the other, alongside those tracks and that development? It'd be a tough sell if any of the prospective buyers knew about it. Let's see. Mr. Michael Reddy, I know he's been a thorn in your side. He's a gentleman with a heart of gold. I've known him since I was a kid, and he was nice enough to put his best foot forward and do some of the fighting for us in the neighborhood, and I appreciate it. And right now, I feel I have to get more involved. I mean, this is my neighborhood. My family lives there. Your company, the chairman of the board of Bradford, his company's been there since 1967. The house I'm living in, Irene LaRoe, has been there since 1925. My mother next door, her family built that house in 1925. I'm around the corner, my cousin is next door to me, and my other cousin is building a house on some of his family's property. And even as it stands right now, you think the traffic's bad? It's going to get even worse. Because right now the traffic is bad enough so that Dingwell Street where I live, which is one way going toward Middlesex, they're still shooting down that street on a regular basis the wrong way. Somebody's going to get killed, and I don't want it to be either one of my daughters. And the family across the street from me has young children, or I should say a young child. We're getting young people in the neighborhood. Those who have young families, those who are starting young families, and most of the others are retirees. They're elderly. And as difficult as it is now from a safety perspective, it's only going to make the situation worse. I'm not going to feel as safe. I'm going to have to be more vigilant. And, you know, I really can't be for this. I think the project is beautiful. I think it's absolutely fantastic, and I'd be all for it. And there's only one thing that would change my mind to make me go all for it, and that's another bridge between here and Tingsboro. Between the Rourke Bridge and Tingsboro, you put another bridge in there, that takes away more than 50, I'd say at least 50% of the traffic, maybe more. And I think that would be an even greater selling point, maybe even make it more valuable. Right now, people see the traffic. If they come at the wrong time, the noise and all that stuff, they're going to have trouble selling it. So right now, I think it's a bad idea, and I hope you take that into consideration. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else like to speak in opposition?
Patricia Emmerich, 1878 Middlesex Street. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I'm here in opposition of this project as I have been in the previous times. The proposed road will require the demolition of the duplex located at 1881 and 83 Middlesex Street. This in turn will destroy what remains of our Middlesex Village neighborhood. This will also increase the already existing vibrations from the trains. And as Bill spoke, there will be a commuter rail which will add to this. Traffic in the site area is already a danger of great concern. Safety of the children, safety of the elderly and handicapped, mothers walking their babies and children. I see this on a daily basis, and it's not easy for them to cross the street. The proposed closing of the existing road will be an invitation to illegal activity, which we have enough of already. The school buses operate on some days until 6 p.m. Will the parents park on Middlesex Street to pick up their children, which would create another hazard? In regards to the traffic, I often have a 5-minute wait to enter or exit my driveway, and have been in traffic as far back as North Chelmsford City Line and as far back as Drum Hill to get to Wood Street. The Rourke Bridge is already overloaded and a threat to emergency vehicles. I will also have more garbage and beverage containers to pick up off my front lawn. I have been a Lowell resident for 52 years, 72 years, 56 of which I resided at 1878, where I still reside in my family home, and I was born there. I still have relatives in the area who have resided and still reside in the neighborhood for 80 plus, 60 plus, 50 plus years. Our neighbors have been there, a lot of them from 20, 30, and 40 plus years. I am a loyal Lowellian, voter and taxpayer, and hope that you will treat my neighbors and myself with the same respect which we have given to the city. Also, I don't know how this is going to help me, as my taxes have already increased considerably. Thank you.
Thank you.
I also have something here from my daughter, Mr. Lenahan.
Sure, you can approach, ma'am. Thank you. I recall. Thank you. This is submitted by some of the neighbors on Middlesex Street. This says that they are requesting that the board consider that we vote no on the Bradford Industries. And it is signed by people who live on the street, and their names and addresses are here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Approximately 15 people who are against. They've all signed it. The names and addresses are here. The board members like to look at that. If not, we'll put it into the record. Anybody else here like to speak in opposition? Okay, sure. If you'd like to just get up and state your name while we're looking at it, ma'am, and just tell us whether you're in favor or against it, we can do that, and we can pass that back for you to sign it as well. Okay. So we have it on the record for you.
My name's Ann Dolman, 1959 H Middlesex Street, and I've been at almost all of these hearings, and I am very much against it, but I'm not much of a public speaker.
It's quite all right.
I just wanted to make one little remark. My friend over here mentioned the railroad behind us and possibly another one. I had a friend who rented out her condo where I live, and the couple that rented it were out of there in 3 weeks. They couldn't stand the railroad tracks, the noise that was coming there. So it's just
Thank you.
My comment.
Thank you. Anybody else like to speak in opposition?
Good evening, gentlemen. I apologize for not, or for missing roll call of neighborhood groups. My name is Nancy Judge, and I reside at 28 Fosh Street, and I co-chair the Highlands Neighborhood Association. Fosh Street is within, probably half a mile from 18, whatever it is. 1881 and 1883, Middlesex Street. I was asked not too long ago to get involved in this project. Over the past few days, I have taken a ride through Bradford Industries and the area, and I know that some of you are familiar with Middlesex Street and the traffic, and it's horrendous. So I would like you to give that some consideration. We've seen many changes over the past 50 years, but what was once considered the suburbs of the city, where our children could actually play safely, breathe clean air, and adults could enjoy the privacy of their land, has now become Condo City, congested traffic, accidents, and poor air quality. I guess I'm asking this board to consider when enough is enough. How many condos need to go in that area? I mean, there are very few single-family homes left. So I would just like to ask this board if they would take the residents' comments into consideration before making a decision to add another 128 more condo complexes to this area. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else like to speak in opposition? In opposition? In opposition? Hearing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed.
Can
Yes, Counselor.
I just make a comment? Since this is in litigation, Mr. Chairman, I didn't want to step up when anybody's speaking, even in support of it, but I'd like to ask that the record be stricken as to any comments that are made that do not pertain with the safety of the driveway. That's what we're here for, just the driveway only. And I'd like the record to reflect that, Mr. Chairman.
I understand that, Mr. Flood, and I think I tried to emphasize that at the beginning of the hearing, and I think all the board members here know what our purpose is.
Okay, I just want the record to reflect that, though.
The one thing I'll explain is, the court order to me means the same as the special permit when it came in to begin with, because it says the exact same thing. What the court order says is, the only thing different is, the court order says we need five members to be present. But meanwhile, it does say that we have to consider section 6.72, whereby our own definition and bylaws, when the special permit for the road over 200 feet, we have to consider 6.72. So I think the board members here tonight all understand what's in front of us, since it's been before us in several points. As I indicated at the beginning of the meeting, the site plan has been approved, so anything that contains to the site plan is not properly in front of us tonight. And anything that is distinguished from the site plan compared to the special permit, I think the board members could weigh that in their deliberation. But I understand what you're saying, and I think the board members are very familiar with this and know the difference between the site plan and the special permit. And I think that they'll vote accordingly at whatever meets the special permit needs.
I just wanted to get it on the record, Mr. Chairman.
And that's why I tried to give the background and the history that has already been approved. I know some of the concerns of the traffic off-site, but basically we're here just for the safety for the reasonable, to provide safe and reasonable access for fire, police, and emergency vehicles on that driveway.
Yes.
The common driveway. Okay. Thank you. At this point in time, I'll turn the matter over to the board members. Any of the board members have any questions or concerns?
Mr. Chairman, if
Yes,
I
Mr.
may.
Bichette, go right ahead.
Council, as we can recall, when this was before us originally, and into the residents that did come out, and I have to applaud you for sticking with this meeting after meeting, and I know has gone on for some time, but as I look at this, and again, under section 2.7.2,
6.7.
it is with no disrespect to any of the concerns that the residents have. 6.7.2, maximum distance. It's subject to reasonable access for fire, police, and emergency vehicles, and we did get professional findings on that, and it's one of the few times I can recall the board even getting some documentation from an ambulance company. In the past, that has not been requested. I know that because I've been coming here for 10 years on similar projects. One of the concerns was the safety of children, and was addressed with the walkway, the bus stop, with the shelter. Lighting was brought up originally, and we did discuss the lighting. A condition that I had asked at the last hearing was speed bumps, and I still would like to see that. I think it's very effective. This is not a public road. It will not be subject to police radar or monitoring, but speed bumps are probably more effective than having a police officer trying to control the speed. So obviously, I would be looking for speed bumps on that roadway once again. With respect to the neighborhood groups, obviously I have a great deal of respect for the neighborhood groups and what they can do. I think the gentleman that had mentioned the situation on Dingwell where it's a one-way and people are not adhering to that, I would get on the phone first thing tomorrow morning with the Lowell Police Department and see about getting some enforcement. It'd be amazed if they do it at the right time and they do it for a sustained period of time, that it does send a message. And you have to stick with that. You have to, when you notice that people are not complying with it again, is request that the Lowell Police Department to get out there. I know, Mrs. Judge, do you have the police department come on a regular basis to your neighborhood meetings? Yes, we do. Yeah, I would definitely make that a priority, clearly. I think I can feel for the residents there. I've similar situations in my neighborhood, and it's basically a cut-through street between two major roads, and it's for residents that live there, it's a difficult situation. I can understand that. However, as I see what we're charged with here this evening, in my mind, it hasn't changed from what was originally presented to us. And in my opinion, and not only my opinion, but the opinion of professionals in the industry and in the fire department, police department, that the roadway is probably, with the speed bumps in the shelter, is probably one of the safest roads in the city of Lowell when you're done with it, as far as I can see. So that's my comments, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Fischett. Any other board members, questions or concerns?
Just to follow up with what Mr. Frechette said, of course, what we're charged with tonight is just specifically regarding the special permit concerning a determination as to whether or not the driveway will provide safe and reasonable access for fire, police, and emergency vehicles. The developer, in my opinion, is not asking for any special considerations, not asking for any waivers, not asking for any variances or for us to change anything, but our bylaws say that any time that a driveway is going to exceed 200 feet, bring it before this board, let's make a determination as to whether it's safe or not. As part of that process, we send out to the city departments, and in this case, and most other cases, we get a response back, and in this case, a response from fire, police, and Trinity Ambulance, among others, was that it's safe and reasonable access for fire, police, and emergency vehicles. So I certainly would still be in favor of granting the special permit.
Thank you. Rich, any questions, concerns?
No, just a comment, and I'll make a motion. I think we've received substantial information here from all the parties involved to indicate that this is a safe road. The fire department, the police department, Trinity Ambulance, I don't think there's any question, so I move that we approve the special permit for the length of the driveway.
Speed bumps.
With,
well, no,
including the speed bumps.
well,
that was in the original motion.
Let's keep them, I think we still have to hear from other board members, okay. So, you're done, Mr. Lockhart?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, any questions or concerns?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to, obviously this has been before us before, and I was kind of the skunk at the garden party at the last meeting. Sorry for that, but I think we're here to, I feel that I'm here to try to do what's right for the city. And also, as everybody's pointed out, tonight we're charged with the safety of the driveway. And I know that we've gotten letters from the fire department, from the police department, and the Trinity Ambulance saying that they feel the road is safe. And I think that's excellent input for us. But I think it's our job to look at the bigger picture and to consider external factors that affect the safety of this road. I think the fire department, police department, they look at some very specific criteria. Is the road wide enough for trucks to pass? Is there enough space for trucks to turn around? Is there water, which was mentioned in one of the memos available? And under those criteria, this road is safe, has sidewalks, it's well lit. But there are external factors that I think we as a citizen board need to consider with regard to the safety and accessibility by emergency vehicles of this particular driveway. The primary one, in my opinion, being traffic. As one of the residents mentioned, traffic is an abomination in this area. That is a good term for it. Anybody who's gotten off of Route 3 and tried to get over the Rourke Bridge 5 o'clock in the afternoon knows that it can take you an hour. Traffic's backed all the way up to the Rotary. In this particular unit, this particular site, we're looking at 128 housing units with 2 bedrooms, some of them with a study that could potentially be used as a 3rd bedroom. There's going to be a lot of vehicles on this site. The lot holds 288 parking spaces, which meets the code, and by the way, it meets the code even if there is a 3rd bedroom in every unit, but that's a lot of vehicles. And when you figure in guests and visitors, I think that you could see when this facility is fully utilized, you could be looking at between 250 and 300 cars on that site. Those cars are going to be coming down that road, trying to get out onto Middlesex Street, and it's going to back up. There's going to be traffic congestion, there's going to be traffic problems. Getting onto Middlesex Street, which is one of the busiest streets in the city, is not going to be easy for them. It's just north or west or whatever that is of the intersection of Wood Street and Middlesex Street, which is a notorious intersection. You have the Rourke Bridge there, commuters trying to go to and from work, commuters from Pawtuckaville and Centerville and Dracut and Tingsboro and southern New Hampshire trying to get back and forth from work to Route 3, make it terrible. You have the Market Basket Plaza there, which is a notoriously bad spot for parking, making that intersection and that road even more congested. You have the Edward Street soccer field right there in the opposite corner, which has no parking and is accessed by hundreds of young people and their families on weekends to try and play soccer there, and people are parked all over the place. I bring all that up knowing that it's not necessarily germane to the safety of the road, but in my opinion, it does relate to it because it creates a very, very extremely bad traffic situation on that road, which relates to the road. I brought along a newspaper article that was in the Lowell Sun about a month ago, talking about the difficulty of traffic, regarding traffic in Lowell. And inside the article, there's a chart that rates the top 100 intersections in the city of Lowell with regard to crashes and injuries. 100 intersections, not in the city of Lowell, but in the northern Middlesex County. This traffic study was done by the NIMCOG, the Northern Middlesex County of Governments. So it's a government-sponsored study, and it found that the number 2 intersection in all of the northern Middlesex County, that's Lowell and Dracut and Westford, Billerica, Chelmsford, out as far as Dunstable, the number 2 intersection is with regard to problems, injuries, crashes, is Wood and Middlesex Street. Traffic is horrendous at this spot, and that's going to back up on this road. That's going to cause congestion, and when we're talking about accessibility by emergency vehicles, seconds can make a difference. Seconds can be the difference between a life or no life, and I think we need to consider that. I certainly feel I need to consider that. I mean no disrespect to Bradford Industries by this. I know for a fact from past history that Bradford Industries is a great neighbor to Lowell, and I'm thrilled to have you here. I hope you stay here. I have to do what I think is right, though, and I have to do what I think is my job. Or the builders. Some of the builders I've known for many years. I know they're good Lowellians. I mean no disrespect. I mean nothing personal. I don't believe that my opinion is arbitrary or capricious in any way, as was stated in the lawsuit. But I honestly feel as though that because of the traffic situation in that neighborhood and the fact that that's going to back up and affect this driveway, that I don't feel confident that we can provide safe and reasonable access for emergency vehicles.
Some of the concerns I have in regards to the roadway were basically the same concerns I had when the matter came in back in the summer, when it was back before us in June, July, back in October. I think the main thing we have to look at here is the whole site itself. I know we're looking at 6.72, but the main concern I have is with regards to the roadway. When you look at the site, I think you really have to look at everything around the site. To the rear, you have railroad tracks and a river. To the front, where to turn the building, you have wetlands, and to the right and to the left, you have more apartments and areas. We've had previous testimony that there'll be at least 350 people in that site in the past with 128 units. I'm talking about people getting in and out of there. My main concern is if there's a fire there, how are they really going to get out of there? The concern is that they have the emergency access to the right. And they say, and I know by looking over all the past testimony, as I said, I wasn't here in the November matter. However, I did watch the thing on tape twice. I did read the minutes. I have to give Mr. Flood a lot of credit. The letter that he got before that I had questions about from the fire department, how they said it should be safe, he had him turn around and said it will be safe. I give you a lot of credit for that. I said basically that we should consider the police and emergency vehicles. You went and got letters and said, yes, it is safe, it is safe. The traffic engineer says, yes, it is safe, it is safe. With emergency access, I know you're out and got a towing company said they'll tow the cars. Every time I go there, there's a sign saying no parking, and what do I see? I see cars parked there. When up there before, there was a flatbed with cars on the back of that flatbed, right next to the no parking sign. Went there another time, there's box trucks up there, right next to the no parking sign, they're still on the roadway. I went there last night, 6 o'clock, I was probably there from 5:30 to 6:45, spoke with some of the neighbors, we looked over, more cars parking right there. You go into the emergency site, there's a sign, 24-hour security. Why they can't call and have those cars towed, I don't know. Bradford Industries knows what I'm saying because they've been here on all 3 occasions that I've been here and heard my concerns all 3 times. If they were concerned, maybe they would have picked up the phone and had them towed. So basically, you look at them coming in there. I know they say they're going to plow it. I know they say they're going to be locked. And basically, so people say that it's a reasonable site because of the other entrance. But looking at the other entrance, if it's not maintained and not cars towed away, then the vehicles can't get in there because most of the letters, they're saying this combined because of the 2 roadways. Back to the roadway, it's 428 feet. My concern is that it is a private way. It is also a common way with the neighbor to the right. My concern is if that person on the common way has a vehicle that if he's having guests over, what if that clogs part of that roadway? I know we're talking about before for the snow removal on that site. Testimony was brought in very clearly. What we'll do, we'll bulldoze it. So I'm trying to picture in my mind a site 420 feet long with a bulldozer and the snow removal on site with traffic trying to get in and out of there. I know exactly what you're talking about for the special permit. I know the judge sent it back to us. My concerns on the special permit were the same concerns they came in before. A lot of my concerns mixed with the site plan as I voted against, and also talk about the special permit. I give great respect to all my colleagues. I know in the past I was the only dissenter, and therefore, when it was brought to me before, the material change, I voted yes. I said, okay, bring it back. Maybe I'm being the one who's unrealistic here. I mean, I respect everybody on this board. Everybody has their peace of mind. I know you're talking about, Bradford Industries says, it's tough for trucks getting in and out of there now. I understand that. But I'm thinking of, if there's a fire back there and people cannot get out of that site, even though we have people saying that there's reasonable access to that site, I think the responsibility is of this board to make the specific finding. And I don't find the specific finding with that many units to get in and out of that driveway site without the proper access for the vehicles passing on that road, the fire trucks passing on that road, other vehicles passing on that road. I think for that length, in that congested neighborhood, with all those units, I cannot honestly say that I specifically find that that access road is safe for the fire, public, and emergency vehicles. Those are concerns I had from day one. I think I mentioned those every single time. I don't think anything new introduced tonight had changed my mind. Obviously, when I come to every meeting, I do keep an open mind. I do listen to all the letters that were given and say that it's safe, but I think each one of those, one of the letters indicated by looking at the plan. I can look at the plan from here and says it looks great, but every time I go up there and walk the site and walk through it and look at it, it doesn't reflect actually what's going on up there. I mean, it's not the no parking on that emergency site. It says there's no parking there, but they do park there every time I've been there, whether it's been day, night, weekend, or weekday. There's still parking up there. So I think that has a lot to do with the access. And those are my concerns, and I don't find a specific finding. Not for that many units on that site, and I know some of it has to do with the site plan, which I voted against before, which isn't before us tonight, but for the specific finding, I don't find it. And those are just my concerns, and at this point in time, I'll turn it over to the board. Anybody like to make a motion?
Rich, you want to make that motion? I'll be happy to step up and make it.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the special permit for the length of the road. Just a comment beyond that, I think the way it's designed, including the speed bumps, the width and everything, and the letters that we have, I think from a design standpoint, it proves that it is safe, in my opinion. I think, in all due respect to everybody, that it's easy to speculate about loft units becoming extra, or lofts becoming extra bedrooms and more cars coming in, and people are going to park where they're not supposed to, and some of that's reasonable, but I think that type of speculation doesn't belong here. You have to look at the design and what's included in the documentation that we have. So I do move that the special permit be approved.
Motion is made. Anybody want to second that motion?
I'll second.
Motion made and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Any against? Okay. Chair votes no, so the vote is 3 in favor and 2 against. Therefore, the motion does not carry. What will happen here now, this matter will go back before the land court, and it will be Zoom, where council has filed. As indicated, I passed out copies earlier of the land court decision. It does say what the remedies are under the law, what can be done, and how the matter will be tamed by Judge Long in the land court. The matter will move from there. The city solicitor's office here in the city of Lowell will be representing the city. Anybody have any questions in regards to the litigation, they contact the city solicitor's office. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to take a 2-minute recess, let people clear out. Yeah, please. Yeah, you can come up if you like. Oh, we'll sign a letter, I'm sorry, yeah.
Oh, yeah, the petition.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. This will keep you busy. Not for long. He's doing good things. You look good.
It's looking pretty good, huh?
Thank you, Council, for your concerns. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Yeah, yes, isn't it? Yes. I haven't seen him in ages. He used to be up here all the time. Phil. Kevin Farrell was here. He used to brag on him all the time in his lousy looking suits and stuff. It's really funny. Better be careful.
Okay, moving along, our fifth public hearing tonight will be the zoning amendments and additions. In accordance with Mass General Laws, Chapter 48, Section 5, the Lowell Planning Board will consider ordinances to amend the Code of Ordinances, City of Lowell, Massachusetts, with respect to Appendix A, therefore entitled Zoning. Changes, clarification, and additions are proposed regarding ballpark advertising signage, parking standards for takeout restaurants, deck setbacks and floor area ratios in selected districts, home occupation regulations, further definitions of the applicability of single-family homes and commercial additions for site plan review, and other clarifications to the wording of various sections of the Lowell zoning ordinance. We have a copy in our packet of the amendments that are being presented before, I think it's tomorrow night, Jim, at the public hearing before the city council?
Correct, yes.
So tonight is for our recommendation, and tomorrow night there'll be a public hearing before the Lowell City Council on this matter?
Correct, yes.
I know it was advertised in tonight's paper, it was on the agenda, but they didn't mention this.
They didn't mention this?
Nope.
Oh, well,
It said it was a light
my
agenda, 3 or 4, but it didn't mention the zoning code. But I know in our packet, we were told it was on for tomorrow.
yes, my understanding is that it's on for tomorrow. George Proikis is going to be at the meeting tomorrow, so
Yeah, 'cause I had a
I'm
chance
hoping
to
it's
look
on
at it.
tomorrow.
I looked at it quickly tonight before I came out, and it said light agenda, and it had 4 or 5 things on there, and it had a couple of motions by councilors, and I think 1 or 2 issues. One that was continued from last public hearing. I mean, the one that was continued from the last city council meeting, I should say. But they said light agenda and didn't mention any zoning, public hearings, but I just wanted to make that clarified, so if anybody who's listening, that there will be a public hearing on this tomorrow night. So at this point in time, James, anything you want to add to this? I know we have it in our packet. Do you want to go through any questions or comments, or do you want to give an overview, or do you think it speaks for itself, whichever way you want to proceed?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I can give
I know you gave us a little extra handout, excuse me about that.
Right, no, that's fine. The little extra handout just further explains what the zoning ordinance's definition of floor area ratio is, which relates to number 5 of the changes. And I can quickly go through the changes. The first change, establish a ballpark advertising sign. This essentially just allows for temporary advertising signage on various ball fields throughout the city. It was a request from the city council for the DPD to look at, and therefore we're looking at it and we're proposing the ordinance that is in the packet tonight. If you have any questions about that, feel free to ask them. The second is to address the infectious invalidity for lots divided under zoning. This more just takes some case law and brings it into zoning to just further reiterate more for the building department's ability to enforce the zoning ordinance. It primarily discusses basically dividing lots that create non-conforming lots under zoning, and just basically ensures that future development on such lots cannot commence without the appropriate approvals from whoever will be required to do so. So for example, if you have a single-family lot whereby you propose to subdivide it into 2 lots, one may be legal, one may not be legal. From the city's perspective, we're required to sign those plans, subdividing those lots. On all those plans, there's always a little note that says no implication or I forget what the exact note says, but basically it just states that, right, no determination of zoning is implied or intended. But this just allows the building department to say, well, you may have had that sign, but you're still not allowed to build on that lot unless you get the appropriate approvals. It just takes case law and puts it into the zoning ordinance, essentially. The third is to create new parking standards for takeout and sit-down restaurants. Currently, we have one definition for restaurant. This, under concerns that we've had from the building department, from our own department, and just from speaking with people in the community, many takeout restaurants that have very limited seating have very high parking requirements that don't necessarily correlate to what their actual business is, which is a takeout restaurant. They may have a lot of pedestrian traffic, they may have just quick pull-up, get your food, go in back in the car and get out type of clientele, which is very different from, for example, the 99 that's out on Chelmsford Street, whereby a lot of people come to that, sit down, stay for a couple hours, eat their food on site, maybe have some beverages on site. So we're just trying to separate those two into 2 separate entities so that there's 2 separate parking ratios. The third is the rear yard setback. This actually partially came out of the Pawtuckaville Neighborhood Master Planning process. And it basically just, currently there's no rear yard setback deck stipulation in zoning. This puts one in there, just to ensure that you can't build decks too close to rear yard, but a budding property line. Just to note patio, so anything that's low to the ground can still go up to that property line. The idea is that if you have, for example, a 5-foot-high fence, you don't have that right on the property line overlooking your neighbor's backyard or house. You have to be set back, I believe it's 10 feet, which is noted in the ordinance. It may be, there may have been, I believe it's 10 feet.
James, I think, I just had a quick note on that. I think by reading it was, the reward of section 5.163 as follows. 1, unmoved porch, parentheses, deck per dwelling unit, up to 200 square feet in the area may be placed within the rear yard only. This
Okay.
deck may be no closer than 5 feet from the area lot line, and it mentions all the zones, which are residential.
Right. And
Decks
it-
greater than 5 feet in height above ground levels must be at least 10 feet from the rear lot line, and it mentions all the residential zones again. Unmoved porches or decks are subject to all applicable side yard requirements. So that's basically any deck with a roof. So you basically, if you're on the ground, you get 5 feet, and if it's in the, and if it's above 5 feet in height, it's 10 feet.
Right.
And those are all for the rear lot.
Correct.
I just had one question. Any particular way how you come up with the 5 or the 10? I'm sure that you had some thought about going into this beforehand.
Right.
The members of staff, I'm just curious how you come up with that number in regards to one down compared to one above. When I first looked at it quickly, I thought it meant the side yard. Then on a finer review, I realized it was the rear yard, which I was a little more happy with, to be honest with you.
Right. To clarify, side yards, there's no allowances for building decks and side yards right now.
And that's
So
clear
you-
here, which is nice.
Which is clear.
Right. So that's why it's only talking to the rear.
Which is why this is only discussing the rear, correct. When we discussed this internally and with the Pawtuckaville Neighborhood Group, we found that the difference between the 5-foot limit was somewhat arbitrary, but at the same time, we figured that anything really up to 5 feet isn't really tall enough to be that much of a risk to overlooking a property line, at least as close as 5 feet to that property line. If you go above that, you're talking possibly balconies off of a second floor or a deck off of a second floor, and we really wanted to ensure that there was a difference there, a more, basically more room between the rear property line and that deck. So anything above the 5 feet, we figured, okay, 10 feet would be sufficient in many of the districts. And it does talk about the suburban single-family districts, which typically there's plenty of room anyway, but some of the more traditional single-family, traditional two-family, traditional multifamily districts, the rear yard lot line and the location of that lot line to the house, you're talking some limited spaces there in some of these districts on some of these properties. So we still wanted to make sure that you could actually have a maybe 4-foot-high deck up to that 5 feet. But if you're going to be building a second floor deck, you should really be set back at least 10 feet. We looked at some other ordinances, and those seem to be pretty standard numbers, especially for some of the more traditional type districts, and we felt that that was sufficient.
I do agree that I think when it's higher up, it should be further back.
Right.
I mean, that makes more sense.
Yeah.
And I know, like, say, like 5 feet, some of them sometimes are just a foot off, you actually walk out because the ground may not be level enough, and they try
Right.
to do it that way for other reasons. But I didn't know particularly, if any particular, so looking at other areas, that's where we come up with the 10 feet high for the ones over 5 feet?
Right,
I mean,
we figured
back.
a 10-foot setback was sufficient for anything above 5 feet. That gives you plenty of space if you're, say, 6, 7, 8, 10 feet. If it's a balcony off of a second story, you still are required to go back 10 feet. And it's just to allow for that extra room from the rear yard.
Jerry, did you have anybody from Pawtuckaville have an input on regards to the 5 or the 10 feet?
We discussed that.
Could you just come to the microphone so in case anybody's watching, if you wouldn't just state your name, please, I appreciate it.
My name is Richard Souza. I'm the chairman of the Pawtuckaville Citizens Council. I'm also a member of the Citizens Advisory Committee for developing this master plan for Pawtuckaville. We've had extensive conversations on the decks, the length, the height, and we agreed on 5 and 10.
Okay. 'Cause I was just curious when I saw it, I'm thinking, why we get 5, why we get 10? Obviously I agree that, as I said, up high it should be back.
Right.
But I'm just curious how, and I know it's good to have it in the rear, as indicated, the side yard, we do have control of those already.
Yeah.
And I know usually the side yard setback is further than the rear yard is further than the side.
Correct.
Well, Mr. Chairman, that number was actually a compromise because some of the members wanted to go further back. Some of them wanted 20 feet.
Yeah, I mean, I could
right.
see with,
There was a
some people wanted
compromise.
more privacy, I mean.
Right, exactly.
And
Exactly,
I
yeah.
know each location would have his own reasons to be, how each yard is set up and what the neighborhood is, but to try to get one common goal, it's kind of difficult sometimes to meet everybody's concerns, so
Right.
more of a, so basically that was considered by everybody, and that came to a reasonable conclusion, that would be
Yes.
justifiable? Okay.
Exactly, yeah, the 5 and 10 was good.
So that was one of the questions I have, but okay. Do you have anything you want to add to that, or that's basically, okay, thank you. Thanks, James, for clarifying, to answer my question.
Sure.
I'll let you go along, I figured it'd be easier to ask the question while you're going instead of
That's fine.
jumping back.
Yeah,
If nobody minds me jumping in at that point.
I guess if anybody has questions on the first three, then I'll answer those now. One on ballpark signage. I guess that's relatively straightforward.
Yeah, the only thing I saw jumped out, okay, I know one of the things is, it refers to the other code name, but just for anybody who's watching, there's a certain size for that sign, right? Because that's referred to by the other section, I think.
Yes, I believe so. The exact
And I know
sign
we're gonna pick up the other
size-
sign code later, but through the city, right?
Yeah, there's a request to look at the sign code again.
And I know that's for further consideration for
For further
council as well.
consideration, yes. We haven't
that could be-
started that analysis, but it
So that could be changed as a result of this because of what sizes the sign could be.
possibly, yes.
And I know here you're talking about there's a time limit on it.
Correct. The idea of this is that it's up during a ball season.
Right.
The 6 months. And because they're considered somewhat temporary, we realize that it's unrealistic to require a permanent signage, which costs more money and is just, you could have changes in who is actually advertising in these ball fields, and we just felt a more temporary approach to this is better. And then that way they're down for the winter months when the ball fields aren't being used anyway. And then new advertising can be put up with new signage or reusing the old signage as long as it
Signs
does
will last
meet our
longer if
code.
they're not out in inclement weather,
That's
too.
true too, yes. You can use them for multiple
You
seasons.
actually read them instead of be wear and tear, and then
So-
put them back up, you can't see them from the street.
Correct.
Go ahead, Rich.
So you're gonna, my reaction to this was that there should be more control over size, there should be more control over material. I mean, you open yourself up for a conglomeration of signs that are gonna detract from the ball field.
Correct.
You know, and there should be some standards here to prevent that.
We
Even
had-
right down to how you would fasten them to a chain link fence.
Right. We did have
Is
lengthy
that,
discussions on that in our office.
Okay.
And again, this was somewhat of a compromise, similar to the compromise that we had for rear yard setbacks. Some of us definitely did want to go as far as regulating types of signage, how to fasten it to the fences, even the style of the signage. But in some respects, we felt that doing that went a little bit further than what some of the the Little Leagues were already currently allowing, and we didn't necessarily want to tell a possible owner of a business that was supporting a Little League that, oh, well, I know you just spent that much money on your sign, but hey, you know what, you need to fix it. So we were kind of limited there. If that's something that the board wants to let the council consider, we can definitely, I can add it to the comment letter or the report and recommendation to the board for tomorrow night, from the planning board to the city council
Just see what
tomorrow night.
concerns we have, the size and how it's attached.
I'm not suggesting that we hold up any businesses from more money.
Yeah.
Right.
But I think they should look good.
So you'd rather have them give the money to the Little League instead of give it to the sign?
Absolutely, yeah.
Right.
I mean, just some, uniformity that looks good, without
One of the
going to
concerns would be
excess
just
cost,
basically
that's all.
the size of the sign and,
Yeah,
the
sure.
uniformity of the sign.
We have some beautiful ballparks in the city.
And I think, like I said, because I know in here we're talking about the signage in the city going to take up in the future. So that could affect this as well, correct?
Right, this...
But it probably wouldn't be to this ballpark season, or this baseball season.
Right, it's definitely something that this can obviously go through now, should this get approved tomorrow night and tonight, this can go through now, and then as we do reevaluate the entire sign ordinance, we can always come back to this, should that be a strong concern from not only this board, but also city council.
Mr. Chairman, I did have one question relative to that, and similar to standards or enforcement is, I guess my question was, who would be charged with enforcing to make sure that the signs come down, or would it be self-policing?
Who would do the work?
All of a sudden...
The building inspector, wouldn't
The
it?
building department ultimately inspects these, and I know the current building, the new building department commissioner is working on a full, more enforcement strategies to ensure that such things as this new sign ordinance does actually
If they
enforce.
haven't come down to,
They can take them down
they're
themselves.
going
the
to go
city
down
could,
and
right?
take them down? Are they going to make a phone call, or is it?
They may require, I'm not exactly sure how the building department handles enforcement. I'd imagine there is a phone call followed up probably by a letter of you must take these signs down, which could also possibly be followed by some sort of a fine system. I'm not sure how they actually do handle fines.
It's already in play, you know, the historic board really rides.
The historic board has a very
nice
very
job they
strict
do, and,
process in place for
a lot of
not
things are
enforcing
regulation. Usually they
signage.
give
Plug it
notice
into that.
first.
Right,
give a chance to
there's some
respond
form
to
of
that
notice, just to let them know that this is happening. If you don't actually respond to that notice, then there's a type of enforcement after that.
Anybody else have any question on the first few that we've covered?
Just
Before
on the
Before I
ballpark.
jumped in and mixed it up?
Just on the ballparks again, is this considering just signs within the park, not anything on the outside structure or outside fences?
Correct. This is proposing to ensure that they're affixed, essentially like what you see along like
The
back
advertising
stops.
fines.
Yeah,
So it'd be like, so if you look at Little League ballpark, it'd be like in the outfield facing into the batter.
exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
So when you're watching the game, you can look out and see sponsored by so-and-so bank or.
Exactly.
Like at the Lasher Park. you know,
Right.
same all.
Exactly. That's the intention of
Basically, they're not
this.
gonna be facing the streets when cars drive by from the park. It's basically the way, I mean, the outfield for the Diamond people watching the game. Some of them could be that way, because like it's
Right, the
shed when
ball
you drive
field
by,
could-
home
right.
plate's here, and you look out, you can see some of them. But
Ex-
most of that big park, there has no fence out there, it's just a.
Correct.
background.
And if that's another question that if you want them to be on both sides, that's another thing that can be considered. We can.
I think if they have the one for the people who are watching the park would be sufficient.
Right.
I mean, you know, face it into the observers instead of putting it on the outside. But then you have, basically, it's advertising to the public and not for the people attending the ballpark.
Correct.
Mr. Chairman, just to follow up on that, there's also safety issues around the, standards, right? You don't want
There are.
metal signs that are going to hurt somebody if they're going for a fly ball or something.
True.
So,
True, never
I
thought
think
of
that could be part of the standards in how they're fastened. If you have screws sticking out or something, that could be a problem. But I know that other communities do this. I know I've been to tournaments in other towns, with Methuen, for instance. So you may want to contact them to see if they have a standard that we can copy or something, or maybe there's some something that they've done that we could reuse.
Yeah, we can. That's not a problem. We can definitely do that. And I'm not sure whether or not it will be something that we can add by tomorrow night per se.
Okay? What we could do is, maybe when we get to the end of these, we can come back and make a vote with some comments on maybe 1 through 10. You can just pass those comments
That's
along.
fine.
You do it that way?
That's
All right.
perfect.
So we'll do is, we can continue to go through them, and then we'll add some comments that can be considered, and then we'll just let you add those comments as a result of tonight's vote, what our vote was and what comments we have in regards to the council to consider.
That's perfect.
Okay.
Yep.
So, do we want to pick up where you left off then on number, so you talked about the yard, the rear yard deck setback, we completed that, so that's 1 through 4.
Yep.
You want to go to number 5 and start from there, which is the floor ratio plan?
Yes. Thank you. I'll continue, Mr. Chairman.
Sure,
Thank you.
thank you.
Essentially, number 5 just discusses changing the floor area ratio in the suburban single-family and traditional single-family districts from its current ratio of 0.5 to 0.35. Essentially, what this would mean that, for example, in the suburban single-family district, you're required to have 10,000 square feet per lot. If you have an exact 10,000 square foot lot, you'd be permitted to build a house or a structure of roughly, exactly up to 3,500 square feet. Just to make note, I did pass out an email discussing what the current definition of floor area ratio is in zoning, and it does include, for example, basement and attic space. So when you see an advertisement for a 3,000 square foot house, that advertisement typically does not include such spaces unless they're finished or unless it's considered part of their advertisement. So just consider that as well, because with the 0.35, it really is somewhat saying that the actual living space of a house may be more around 2,500 to 3,000 square feet, because the floor area ratio currently defined in zoning does include the attic space, which could just be nothing as more than storage, and basement space, which again could be nothing more than storage. So if there's any questions, if there's no questions on that, I'll continue.
Mr. Chairman, if I just
Sure.
may add,
Go ahead,
and I know Mr. Souza here as well. This was something that was really discussed at great length at the CAC with the Pawtuckaville Master Plan, and part of it is in an effort, especially preserving the post-World War II subdivision neighborhoods, and really, it does two things. When you talk about affordable housing, I think a 5-room ranch in a cape on a 7,500 square foot lot or a 10,000 square foot lot is certainly preserving affordable housing and also preserving the character of the neighborhood and preventing what the term that's used of mansionization of neighborhoods. And this was something that was really discussed at great length, and I can tell you has a lot of support from the other side of the river at this point.
Mr. Chairman.
Sure, Mr. Chairman. Go ahead,
I
please.
think this is a long time coming, actually. Most of the people that I've talked to in the neighborhoods, when a new development goes in, the biggest problem they have is not the fact that new houses are going, but the fact that they're these enormous, as Jerry said, mansionization of neighborhoods that just dwarf the other houses in the neighborhood. I was going to suggest that 0.35 isn't even enough, because a 35,000 square foot house on a 10,000 square foot lot is still a very large house. Given your explanation about the cellar and the attic, that changes things a little bit. I still think, though, that a 0.3 ratio may be something that's worth considering. I don't know how the rest of the board feels about that, but my thought was on a 10,000 square foot lot, if you have a house that's 26, 27, 28, that's probably appropriate. Doesn't mean you can't build a bigger house. You just need more land to do it, which I think is appropriate. So I would be in favor of reducing this to 0.3.
If I may comment briefly. Mr. Gentleman makes a good point. This doesn't necessarily say that you can only build a 3,500 square foot house in a suburban single-family district. Just means that you need more property to do so. You can still have the 7,000 square foot houses that you're seeing, or 4,000 or 5,000, however large. It just means that you need more land area to go along with that house. So if you have, for example, 15,000 square feet of land area, you can build up to 5,000, 4,500 square foot house,
So
roughly. 5,000.
How does it go once you get over to 10,000? It gets, like,
It's the same ratio.
Oh,
It's
okay.
the same ratio of 0.35, which is,
Okay.
0.35 is basically the ratio of the gross floor area
understand now.
within the house to the lot size.
Okay. So that ratio would apply to the square footage of the lot.
Right.
Okay.
So if you have an 11,000 square foot lot, you can build up to 0.35 house of that lot.
Gotcha. So, as you said, Steve, is once it gets bigger, the bigger lot, you get
You get more land. And the other thing I'd like to point out is that this is only for single-family neighborhoods, right? Suburban single-family and traditional single-family neighborhoods that we're
Correct.
talking about. In other neighborhoods that are more dense neighborhoods, like suburban multifamily, it's 0.75. So it doesn't restrict, the affordable housing type of thing that you might want to do in a more dense neighborhood. But it just prohibits the mansionization of the neighborhood, which I think is a big concern for a lot of residents these days. So I guess I'd put that in the form of a motion that we recommend reducing this floor area ratio from 0.35 to 0.3.
If I may comment briefly,
Sure.
Mr. Chairman. Again, Mr. Gendron is correct. This is only for the suburban single-family and traditional single-family zoning districts. As Mr. Frechette noted, this did come out of the Pawtuckaville Neighborhood Master Plan process. During that time, and even through our own reviews from DPD, looking at the zoning ordinance, really this is designed just for the bigger lot areas, the single-family districts. We haven't heard too many concerns about floor area ratios within the other districts. And from our experience, when we do get projects in those other districts, it's very hard to even get close to that floor area ratio when you take into account the required parking area, the required usable open space requirements, the setback requirements, all those other requirements. The single-family and traditional single-family districts are the two districts that the floor area ratio is a realistic tool for just ensuring that more land area will be required for larger houses. With regards to the 0.3 ratio, if the board wishes to put that forward as a motion, I can definitely put that in the report and recommendation. We did have discussions with this, both with this council subcommittee, with the Pawtuckaville Neighborhood Group, and within DPD, and our recommendation is 0.35, which is in front of you tonight. I just wanted to make that known as well.
Okay. Any board members have any further discussion on that? Any feelings about changing or leaving it as it is? Or?
Well, given that, I mean, the .35, I mean, I agree with Steve that if we reduce it even more, maybe a bit better, but if that was based upon essentially a negotiation or some thought-provoking meetings, et cetera, I'd have no problem with starting at .35, see where that leads us. It'll certainly be a step in the right direction. I don't have a strong feeling about it either way.
My feeling is that, you know, there's not too many opportunities to make changes like this, make meaningful changes to the zoning code, you know, and I think we should take advantage of these opportunities and try to get the protection that we need in the neighborhoods. And I think .35 is good, but I think if we push it a little bit more, I think that would really do a lot to prohibit that type of growth.
Jerry, any comments on that? Are you comfortable either way, or? Yeah, I mean, either way, I think it's an improvement. Right. There's no doubt about it. Now you just question of how much to what degree.
Exactly.
I mean, the city council would have to approve the change anyway.
Right.
I think what we'd be doing is be going on record as saying, this is good. You might want to consider pushing it a little bit
Yeah, I mean,
further.
like I say, when we come to the end, we can make a motion with it and, you know, things that we're considering and what we think could be improved.
Yep.
I mean, I feel it looks like it's, I'm happy that they're addressing the issue. It's hard to actually try to picture the difference if you're looking at a house without a picture in front of you, thinking how much more difference they're going to pick up, you know? I know with the control of the side yard, the setback and all that, that also adds to what they can do when they put this on there. Correct. And you're trying to think of, you know, you're not going to have, we don't have many big subdivisions left, so this would just be basically coming down to a lot. I think there might be maybe subdivision left maybe in Pawtuckaville, but besides that, so just be open single lots that would be putting houses of that nature on there.
Don't say never. You'll be surprised. Somebody's backyard will turn into a subdivision someday, you know, so
Well,
I mean, I
and
think
if you
we
look
need
at
to
the city
protect
map,
about
we
that.
don't have too many subdivisions left to go. Yes, Mrs. Hoots, you can go up to the mic. I mean, try to look, I mean, we looked at before what was open. I remember, it was like a year or two ago, they gave us a map of what open area there was left in the city, or what could be developed and what couldn't. It was pretty
Close to
interesting.
being built out,
And like,
yeah.
you know, we asked the same thing, what big areas do we
Very
still have
little
left?
space.
So we had
Pawtuckaville,
some areas that could be a big subdivision, and the only things that were left was Pawtuckaville. And then there was some single lots, and there was, believe it or not, more than you expected over in Belvedere. There was,
I think there could be some very large
think some of them
single
we've seen
lots
recently.
that could tear down the existing houses and turn it into
yeah.
a development of 20.
Right.
So I don't think we can say, I mean, if you asked me, you know, 5 years ago, if there would have been a development, you know, a new development of 11 homes off of Clark Road, I would have said, well, where's that going to go? But lo and behold,
one there
it's there, and you walk down that street, and the houses are just enormous.
Yeah.
I have no objection to the development. I think it's,
Right.
I think it's
development,
fine.
but the houses are big
But the
on the lot.
houses are just enormous, and I think everybody that I talk to has the same feeling about that. So I think we need to, even though it seems like we could never grow anymore, before you turn around and there it is, you're growing again. And I think it's incumbent upon us to put some controls on that.
Yes, sir.
At the Citizens Action Committee, we've had numerous discussions on this floor area ratio, numerous discussions. Some members wanted to bring it down as low as 2 to 0.2 to 0.25 and 0.3. And the 0.35 number was, again, a compromise from the 5 to where some of the members wanted it. Most members were happy with the 3.5, but I believe some of them were much happier with 0.3.
Okay.
I did have a comment on the ballparks, but I guess you didn't see my hand.
Okay, sure, go ahead.
We don't have a lot of ballparks in Pawtuckaville, but the one major one that we do have is the University of Lowell. And those signs are on the outside. And when you're driving down VFW Highway and looking up at those signs, it looks really tacky.
Yeah.
I just don't know if there's anything we can do about that. If you would, please.
Yeah, I know they do have them inside, but like you say, some are outside too.
Yeah, they're you can see the ones on the outside.
Right.
If I may just comment briefly on that, that's unfortunately, we don't have jurisdiction over signage at the university. It's a state entity that you can speak to any university town that has a school from the University of Massachusetts system. It's because it's state property, because it's owned by the Commonwealth, they sort of are outside of our local zoning ordinance. I actually used to work for the town of Amherst, where UMass Amherst is. Same thing happened there. University used to do whatever they wanted, and the town just said, hey, can you look at us, please. Unfortunately, that's somewhat out of our jurisdiction. It can definitely be something that we are trying to increase community relations with the university from both the city perspective and through the Pawtuckaville CAC and the Centerville, I believe, Neighborhood Action Committee is also part of some of those discussions. And it's going to be definitely an issue, a topic of discussion when we try to speak with them about this, and hopefully as a good neighbor, the university will make the gesture and take down the outside signs. But again, it's not something that the city can necessarily enforce.
I understand there's a new chancellor up there that's supposed to have a community focus. Maybe we could give him a call.
If anybody has his phone, please.
I could get into housing too, but we'll leave that out.
Yeah. Chairman, I'd just like to make a comment about item 5.2. I tend to agree with Attorney Claremont that 0.35 is a step in the right direction, and let's go with that for now, and we can always reduce it in the future.
Okay,
I mean, that brings it down
sure.
quite a bit, so
Why don't we?
I would be in favor of that.
Sure. We'll move on, and then we'll come back with the comments at the end.
Okay.
What we can do is say whether we agree or not, and then we can make some type of recommendations in regards to how we're going so far. All right, so if you have no further than that, do you want to move along to the A&Rs and the site plan review?
Certainly, thank you.
That'll be number 6. Thanks.
Proposal 6 basically is a clarification of the existing subdivision approval requirements in the city. Right now, approval not required lots are allowed to happen through administrative approval. It's something that basically if there's a public roadway, you have legal frontage, legal lot size, all the above of the zoning ordinance requirements, we sign the plans and they're allowed to go forward. What this clarifies is whether or not if you have 4 such lots in contiguous ownership along the same street, they are legally allowed to subdivide into 4 separate lots. But then if the developer of those 4 lots then goes and tries to pull a building permit, will that trigger site plan review because it's more than 3 units? Okay. And this basically just stipulates that, yes, in fact, it will. That's the proposal.
Over
it basically, right now, it's just unclear whether or not single-family lots that fall under subdivision approval stipulations require site plan review under 11.4. This basically just clarifies that under 11.4, if the subdivision approval is, for example, the approval not required process, yes, it does still require site plan review. There's just been some questions whether or not the approval not required process is that subdivision approval process, or whether or not it still does require site plan.
Okay. Anybody have any questions on those matters? No. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Frechette was just raising a point with me here about the A&R lots and pointing out that this is another issue that was high on people's agenda in Belvedere with the Mansour Street development.
Yeah, I recall, yeah.
Where there were several contiguous lots of A&R. So, James, would this have affected a project like that?
If those lots were constructed, if 4 or more of those lots were constructed by the same owner or the same entity, then yes, that would have triggered site plan review. Right. It would not have triggered necessarily subdivision approval because there's an existing public roadway and they have frontage on an existing public roadway. They're legally allowed to by state law. We're required to sign those plans. But as soon as those 3 or more units that are contiguous ownership are developed by one owner, then yes, this would trigger site plan review, bring them in front of the planning board for a public hearing.
How many are there up there now, Steve? I remember going up there, but I haven't counted them.
I think it's like 8.
Yeah, I'm going to say, when I've been up there, I know looking at them, I see all the signs up there for sale now. So that would have brought this in here, where before we had no say in that matter.
Right.
I know some of the questions I had, people called me saying, how come it's not going before you?
Exactly.
One thing to note, however, is if those 8 lots were subdivided and then sold to separate entities for construction, then this would not trigger site plan review. Because
but then we would have the subdivision first, though.
No, because approval not if there's an existing public roadway. If a roadway is constructed, that's a different ballgame.
Right.
This is for lots that on an existing public roadway, built-out roadway. There are paper streets that are technically existing, but they're only existing on paper. And even those still require subdivision approval from the planning board. This is just for the subdivision of a property that's along an existing public roadway into more than 3 lots, essentially, 4 or more units whereby it's developed by a single entity.
Now, James, if a savvy developer set up 3 different LLCs and...
That under case law,
You wanna go to all
actually,
that trouble, I suppose, yeah.
that under case law is not considered separate ownership.
Okay, all right. good.
If that one person is, or even if he sells it to his brother, it's still technically considered a single owner under case law. We've researched that in our office extensively. It's the control of, exactly.
Okay.
If that single person or a family owns control over 3 or more units or 3 or more contiguous owner-owned lots, that triggers site plan. He would actually have to sell it to a completely separate entity, not just a separate LLC under his name.
Any further question on that? We're getting back to, which the next one would be, okay, so we have the clarity for the application to use table of additions, instructions, and mixed-use projects?
Correct.
So this means they need satisfied both.
How about this one?
For proposal 7 you're talking about?
Yeah, I mean, I know there's some discussion here about how,
7.
okay. No, we did 7, right? We're on
We're on 7.
We're on 7 now.
Right, I'm sorry. Okay, go ahead.
Proposal 7
one, yeah.
just is another clarification of the site plan review, trigger review. Basically, it tries to clarify the types of commercial projects that would be triggered by the 10,000 square foot requirement of construction for the site plan review. There's been questions with regards to whether or not it's the size of the expansion of the project or if it's the size of the entire project at the end. And this basically just states any construction of a non-residential structure of greater than 10,000 square feet triggers site plan review. Expansion, exterior alteration of a non-residential structure or structures where the area of the alteration or expansion exceeds 10,000 square feet brings the project in for review. And then exterior alteration or expansion of non-residential structure where the alteration or expansion exceeds 50% of the total gross floor area of the structure or structures upon completion of the project, where the completed project is greater than 10,000 square feet will also trigger review. And there's some examples, I'm not sure if you received them in your packet.
Yes.
But some examples, so for example, if there's a new 9,000 square foot building, that will not. However, a new 10,000 square foot building will require site plan review. A 9,000 square foot building with a 100 square foot addition, a 9,000 square foot addition on a 100,000 square foot building will not, because that 9,000 square foot addition is not 50% or more of the existing 100 square foot building.
There's a few examples, and he explained
Right.
that, yeah.
But if there's a 12,000 square foot building, that 12,000 square foot addition is greater than 10,000 square feet on a 100,000 square foot building, then that does trigger site plan review. So there's some examples in here as to what we're trying
How that works out, right.
how that works
Yeah,
out.
I mean, I think the examples were helpful.
Right. And it's essentially a clarification. Right now, there's still questions as to, well, if it's an 8,000, if it's a 8,000 square foot building and there's a 2,000 square foot addition that doesn't exceed 10,000 square feet total, but the addition is only 2,000 square feet, so it's a relatively minor addition, does that trigger site plan review or not? Recently, we've taken the stance that regardless of the question, it does, but we still wanted to clarify that, just to clarify further in zoning. And through discussions with the zoning subcommittee, this is the compromise. We gave them 2 or 3 options here, one of which was just anything that comes to 10,000 square feet, it requires site plan review. They felt that this was a good compromise. Basically, in a sense, this doesn't necessarily impede industrial sites from adding a small addition to their site if they're going from like a 9,000 square foot building to an 11,000 square foot building, for example, because that addition is relatively small. It doesn't impede their possibility for growth by requiring them to come in for a site plan review process. But it does still require substantial projects to come in for site plan review.
Any board members have any questions in regards to that matter? Having none? None? Hearing none, we'll move on to number 8.
Proposal 8 is to clarify the application of the use table for additions or to structures and mixed-use projects.
I think that was
I'm
spelled
not sure
out
if
pretty
there's
good
any
in
questions
detail.
here. Yeah, it's spelled out in pretty
Anybody have any
good
questions on
detail.
8? I mean,
If you've
basically,
read through it.
it says you have to have it explains that you have to, basically, the structure has to be triggered, the appropriate provisions, and sometimes it says you make it a mad to it existing there now.
If you have both mixed use and if you have both commercial and residential, you basically need to adhere to both
Right.
sections of the zoning
And then if you have
ordinance
one or
for
the other, you have to use the
parking
highest
for-
standard.
Exactly.
Okay. So that will spell it out and make it clear to the applicants
just-
to come before us.
Right. It essentially clarifies that. Right now, it's questionable as to, well, the primary use is this, but
I think we had that
we have
problem.
a resident up top. What do we need to do?
I think
This
we had
just
that problem in
clarifies.
some of the downtown area things, when they had the mixed use come in. They talk about the parking, and there wasn't much parking down there, and they want to put a business with like a restaurant.
Yeah, it comes up more in the urban districts.
Mm-hmm.
The downtown mixed-use districts, it's more, but because we have the parking garages downtown,
wasn't as bad as
you can
that.
fulfill the parking requirements through those garages.
I think some of it
In the
was-
urban districts or in some of the traditional business districts, mixed-use
I
districts,
think
this
like in
comes
the
up
lower
more
part of the,
often.
some parts of the lower acre is tough, but they can.
Right. And those
That's
are
what I'm
some of the
thinking of,
urban
right.
mixed-use districts.
That was further out from the city, up past
Right.
City Hall and over to the left area.
Right, and some of the neighborhood squares that you'll see that are maybe mixed-use districts, like Couple Square or University Avenue maybe is possibly included in this.
Any questions on number 8? Here, and then we can move on to number 9.
Number 9, I'll just
The home
briefly go
occupation,
through this if it's
yep.
okay, Mr. Chairman. Basically just clarifies home occupations, the definition to just note that you can do some, if you have some off-site work, so for example, if you have an office but you keep a warehouse that you can go to once or twice a week, it just allows you to just do your computer work on-site from your home office and then go off-site for some off-site work. Right now, there's been questions as, well, if it's a home occupation, you should be doing everything on-site. This just allows you to keep the business part of your home occupation basically on-site and says, if you need to go off-site for some reason as part of your home occupation, you're allowed to do so. If you think about it, one way it could be if you have a home office and you're an attorney and you need to go to court once or twice a week, some of your work is off-site at the courthouse. Under current zoning, it's questionable as to whether or not your home office as a lawyer is even allowed. This just clarifies.
No home occupation allows meeting with customers or clients.
No. This is strictly saying, for example, if maybe you have a shipping business, but you only do your computer work on site. Client work is held off site. Anything that's done with shipping is held off site. The only thing you do on site is computer work. This just clarifies that you can actually have that.
Which a lot of people probably do now, no one knows anyways.
Yeah.
Right.
I was just going to say, hypothetically speaking, let's say that I have a computer in a room in my house and I sit there and do my profession during the day, hypothetically. Is that illegal? Or against the zoning laws?
Illegal? Well, I don't want to answer that. I'm not a building commissioner. I'm not the building department, so
It sounds
I don't
like-
want to
sounds like this
tell you whether or
changes,
not that's.
You
My
think of-
inkling is that it'd be best if you actually went through the process and got it approved.
You know, you're trying to think of how many people actually bring work home.
I got to tell
They
you,
sit at the
that-
kitchen
Yeah, a
table
lot
and
of people
start
definitely
folding
bring
stuff
work
out and say, what am I doing?
I tell you,
know?
telecommuting is like, in my field, it's like everybody telecommutes.
Right.
I mean,
I don't think there's any problem with that. I think the home occupation
The home
is just, I'm holding out this address as my business. This
Yes.
is, this is my business.
Yes, okay.
And
If
that's
you're
where I'm-
telecommuting and you have an office in somewhere in wherever, Waltham, and you just work two or 3 days a week from home, that's different. You're still working for an outside entity. It's not your occupation. But if you are the business, if you have a consulting business and you work with 20 companies, you under this, excuse
And that's
me,
your address, your home.
and that's your address for your business, you still can't necessarily have clients come to you, but this just says that, well, you're going to be doing your computer work at home, maybe make some phone calls, but you're going to be meeting with clients off-site. You're allowed to do that.
So that kind of clarifies that.
It's a clarification. We had some questions in the past from the building department as to what this section of the ordinance actually means, and we just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah.
So those are the 9 things for us to consider. I think, looking back, my notes here, I think we had a couple of concerns on, a couple of questions, I should say, about the ballpark advertising regulations and also the, what was the other one? Yeah, number 5, which I think was the floor area ratio. Sure.
One other more technical matter, if I could
Sure.
actually even offer an amendment from the floor to the wording of the Article 2 definitions, restaurant takeout. And if I could just throw this out, at least, and the rest of the members could take a look at this, but the last sentence, and I actually, I had called George Powakis on this because as I was going through the existing zoning and looking at the word, the changing in the definitions, but it says takeout restaurants may have drive-through windows by special permit if drive-through windows are an allowed use in the district in which the restaurant is located. And it may seem obvious to say this, but if we could say as defined under 12.4G of the table of use, because if I look, matter of fact, in the last page we were adding a line to the table of use, 12.4D1, and it said takeout restaurant, and it said neighborhood business use. I just got a little confused, as I for myself personally, thought it might be better to even further clarify, because I wanted to make sure that in the neighborhood business district, drive-through businesses were not allowed, and I believe that's consistent with that, but I just thought that even clarifying where that's defined in the zoning code would be helpful in this definitions, but that's just, throw that out there, Mr. Chairman.
Sure. Any of the board members have any questions on that? James, do you have any concern on or any discussion on that, I should say?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I think it's a very valid concern. It's really just clarifying what's already being said in some respects. At the same time, it's always better to repeat yourself when it comes to zoning, just to further clarify. And I can definitely throw it in the report and recommendation that can be considered by the council tomorrow night.
Okay, let me just see, are all board members in favor of that change?
Yeah.
Sure. Okay. All right. James, could you just throw in a copy of 12.46 so the council can look at that if you have it?
Okay.
Because they're gonna say,
G.
yeah, what is it? I mean, I think if they can look at it and, you know, they say, because I don't know if they'll all have their zoning code with them to tomorrow night's meeting.
Right.
Maybe the pocket version.
Maybe. So, that's one amendment, okay? So that was, where we pulled up on, that was on the, number 3, right? For the takeout and sit-down restaurant? Okay. Getting back, I believe, number 1, there was some discussion about the signs, the safety of how to put them up, the size of those signs. Anybody want to make any type of recommendation in regards to?
I think we wanted something that the signs themselves would be consistent and regulated, and that they would be attached in a safe manner, and if possible, they would all be inside the parking, not on the outside of the fence.
All board members in favor of that amendment?
Yes.
Do you have that, James, or any question in regards to what Mr. Claremont's requesting as a change?
I believe I have everything just to go through quickly, just
Sure.
uniformity of signage, could even include size, type, how it's affixed to
Materials.
fences to ensure that it's safe,
Materials.
and then also that all signage
Yeah.
is
The
internal
material is
to the
designed for
building.
safety issues for the players, okay?
Right.
All right. Then I think the next matter would be the change in the flow ratio, which was number 5, as we discussed, .03 or .35.
So, Mr. Chairman, I would like to just maybe amend that by saying that we ask the council to consider the option of reducing that even further to a ratio of .3.
Okay. All board members in favor of that?
That's fine.
Mr. Chairman?
Sure.
Yeah, I'd be I guess I would be in favor I guess the council will have the final say, but clearly that was a concern if we could even lower it more, and I know the garage area is not counted in that calculation. I know we had some discussion over the calculations of that, but, yeah.
I think we can basically go on record as saying that we're in
Favor?
favor of that ratio, but we'd also like the council to consider even lowering it to the .3,
Yeah, I think.
which would be a recommendation that we feel. We could even go a step further to make we make a recommendation we're in favor, but we'd consider them to consider the .3 instead of the 3.5, which would be either, we consider to be more of a suitable means to change the district.
I think it's fine. I mean, some areas that are considered that probably shouldn't is the attic spaces with a pull-down stair. I mean, I don't really consider that accessible space, but other than storage. But I think that's fine. It's certainly moving in the right direction. And
And so it obviously gives the council opportunities, where we're coming from, what our considerations are. I think as Steve pointed out, it's on the agenda now. This is the time to make the discussion instead of trying to bring it back in later, which sometimes, as we know, these things take a lot of time before they come back again. And I think obviously if this is something that we consider, this is the time for us to voice our concerns. Those are the only three that, I mean, two, and then the one that Jerry had that I highlighted when we went through any of the 9. Does anybody else have any other changes for the 9? If not, maybe we could entertain a motion to approve with the comments that we've addressed with number 1, 3, and 5.
I make that motion to recommend approval with those modifications.
I'll second the motion.
Motion made in second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Chair votes yes. James, do you have any questions in regards to those matters? If you want us to clarify anything, or do you think you got it?
I believe I have everything.
Okay.
I can go through it briefly if you'd like. But
Sure. I mean, just the feedback, that way I think we're all on the same page. If we have any questions, we can address them now while we still have our public hearing open.
Okay, basically, proposal 1 would just be for ballpark signage, create uniformity within the signage, ensure safety, both of this type and size, and material of the signage, but also the affixing of the signage to the actual fence, and also ensure that all signage is faced internally. Proposal 3, which is for takeout restaurants or creating separate stipulations for takeout from regular restaurants, is add to the definition to just note that it's as defined under section 12.4G, I believe. I'll make sure that I have the right number in the Article 12 table of uses, just to further clarify that. And then also to note that the board is in favor of proposal 5, which lowers the floor area ratio from 0.5 to 0.35, but would also request that the city council consider the option to lower it to even 0.3, and just consider that option.
Anybody else in the public want to be heard? Mr. Susi, or anybody else who's present here tonight want to speak on behalf of this application? Hearing none from anybody else, so therefore, those are recommendations that were amended and is approved by this board. So that will be on tomorrow night's agenda before the city council, that we will recommend this phase 2 projects be approved with the 3 conditions that, or the 2 conditions and 1 suggestion that we recommend to the council. Okay. Moving along on that, we have no ZBA report tonight for zoning board of appeals due to the fact that their next meeting won't be till after we meet again. Any of the board members have any new or old business they'd like to discuss? Any notices from abutting towns? Any general correspondences? We have one in our packet, I think, that James gave us tonight, but I think that's basically self-explanatory for information, which is the real estate generation gap, which was in the, looks like the Boston Globe that he prepared for us. He made a copy.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
The only general correspondence is that article. I found it interesting. I read it. It was out in the Globe 2 weekends ago. I just thought it was an interesting article with regards to real estate and general trends of real estate. Just for your consideration, I'm hoping to include in the upcoming packets just more information, just general packets of information. It can be anywhere from signage to landscaping to just general trends to give you more information about such things. What's happening out there?
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
One other item. I attended a city council subcommittee meeting, the zoning subcommittee, along with Mr. Frechette a couple weeks ago, I guess. And there was some discussion there by Mr. Proakis about an additional board that he was considering proposing, a board within the city, made up of city employees, that would review development proposals before it came to any of the city boards, and potentially make recommendations about, land area density and that sort of thing. I just wondered if he could, or you could, at one of our subsequent meetings, give us a report on that and what that's all about and what the intention is.
Certainly. To make a quick note, I believe the subcommittee meeting was to be held tomorrow,
Yeah,
the next,
tomorrow.
that has
Tomorrow
been
at
canceled.
5:30, I believe, right? So it's canceled?
That, to my knowledge, has been canceled.
Okay.
So I don't want you to be showing up tomorrow
Sure.
at 5:30,
Okay.
expecting a subcommittee meeting. That has been canceled. And the new date has not been determined yet. I'm unaware of the reasons for the cancellation, but it has been canceled, and there's no subcommittee meeting tomorrow. I can have Mr. Proakis put something together regarding the proposed, and I believe what you're discussing is the neighborhood character special permit process. Just to give a general overview, I believe we discussed this briefly last time.
And just to let you know, the last meeting, we brought it up. I know you weren't here, George was here, and Steve, you weren't. What happened is, I brought it up on the old business, and I mentioned the fact that I couldn't make it because I didn't get home till 6 that night, 'cause I had an appointment, but I did catch the last half of it on the TV, and I know that you were there, and Jerry was there, and I tried to discuss a little bit of it, so the people who were at home was watching what it was, and obviously Jerry gave us some input, and we stated how the two of you tried to speak, but it was like 6:22, and the city council was starting at 6:30, and then they continued for tomorrow's night's meeting. I know there's some questions by a few people, I think. I know Jerry had a question that he tried to talk about on the ratio. It was getting back to how it was reverting back to where it was. And I had a question too about that board being formed, and I know the council, the subcommittee, they continue that. I know a lot of those questions were unanswered, and due to the fact of lack of time, they were gonna bring it up. And I was hoping it was gonna be addressed tomorrow night, but now, and I plan on being there, good thing we know now that it won't be. But I know we talked about it a little bit, so we tried to bring that up under new business at the last meeting. And I know you spoke briefly on it, Steve, as well, and then you ran out of time as well, because you had a couple of concerns.
Right, right. It was sort of, I came into that meeting late, and I heard the discussion about it, and it's the first I had heard anything of it, and it sounded
I had one or two
kind of
questions on it, and I
but,
know that hopefully we'll get to hear those out at the next subcommittee meeting.
Okay.
Hopefully, because I know the way I understood it is, in fact, if I'm wrong, because you guys were there, I just had to catch the end of it. It was, they wanted to continue it, because I know they needed further discussion.
Right.
And I know they wanted some more input, and they felt that obviously did need some more input. And I think at that point in time is when they approved some of these matters come before us for the public hearing. And I think that was one of the votes they made that night. Is that right, Jerry, right? Okay. So hopefully we'll be seeing that at the subcommittee in the future. But obviously, if we can get a report on that, then we may be more prepared when we attend the subcommittee meeting. And if you do find out when that meeting is, you just communicate to us by email or
Yes,
whatever.
certainly.
Let us know when the meeting
I'll
is.
forward an email to you.
So hopefully we won't be on for tomorrow night, so we won't be there.
Yeah, I
but-
would've gone.
Yeah.
And I can provide something in writing
Sure.
to you
Just
regarding
so-
that.
Because I know they were discussing it,
committee.
but they didn't finish it. Okay.
Right. I can put that together.
There's no further discussion, entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Motion to adjourn, made in second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Meeting's adjourned. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.